Hello, Tolkien geeks, and welcome back to Voice of Geekdom Live. I'm the host, Dan, and I'm back here again with Mr. James Tauber once again to break down another trailer. This is becoming almost a tradition. And I'm joined today as well by Jeremy from the Tolkien Collector's Guide website, who I'm thrilled to meet. I've been following your Twitter account for some time, and I love the website, and it's great to meet you as well.
Thank you for having me. I've been following you along as well, and it's great to finally be connected.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, so we've gotten a lot of information since last week again. James and I spent 3 hours talking about the last trailer last week, almost a week ago to the moment. And we got some music, which I know that you guys are interested in too.
Yep.
And James, you're actually recording something on that next week, I believe.
Yes, a bunch of us who've been sort of analysing the two pieces that got released by Bear McCreary, Sauron's theme and Galadriel's theme.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a bunch of us that have been analysing, getting deep into the music theory behind it and references to Howard Shore's score and things like that. And we decided we'd get together. So we haven't got a link or anything yet, but Monday it'll be, I think, 1 p.m. Eastern on Monday. There'll be a bunch of us getting together to talk about the music that we've heard so far from Bear.
Yeah, let me know when it's up on YouTube, and I'll share that on my community tab so people can find it. But yeah, perfect.
Wonderful.
And Jeremy, anything you're up to that you want to tell us about before we get started?
Well, there's a lot going on the website with new guide features coming. I've been working with James on some searchability. He's got a search function on his website that I think we're planning on hooking up to deeper content on the collector's guide. So that's been a lot of fun and sucking up a lot of time. So
yeah, you have a YouTube channel as well, don't you? I believe as well.
Yeah, we just started just a couple episodes in. The three of us who kind of run the website. So Andrew, Chad, and myself are trying to keep it focused on collecting for the most part. So talking about our collections, our background, and interviewing some other folks. And it's been a lot of fun kicking it off, and we're slowly scraping the rough edges off.
Your collection behind you there already puts mine to shame, and I bet that's just the tip of the iceberg. So.
It wraps all around me in this room. So yeah.
Your colleague there on Tolkien Collector's Guide is Trotter, isn't it?
That's correct.
That's his screen name. He lives very close to me, actually. I grew up not far from where he lives, so I was thinking about contacting him at some point. I'm in Hertfordshire. He's in Essex, but
he will love to have you come over and see his collection in person.
I would love to. Yeah, I could make a video on it, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I've seen his collection of like antique hobbits. He's got way too many copies of the Hobbit for one person.
So just to promote this thing, I'm trying to in the community get people using the trotter as a unit of the number of. If you have 100 copies of a book, that is a trotter. So I myself only have a half trotter of Silmarillions. Trotter himself has over a trotter of hobbits.
Yes.
So I'm hoping everyone will adopt that phraseology when counting their Hobbit collection.
Yeah, I've bought into that already. Yeah, perfect. But yeah, it's delightful to have you both on. We've got a lot to get through here, so I think I'm just going to bring up the slides here on the screen.
Go for it.
That's the wrong one. That view. And so our first shot of the new trailer is more Galadriel. And so she's not fondling a helmet there. If you haven't seen the trailer, it doesn't necessarily translate when you don't see it in motion, but but she's placing one of the helmets there.
Fun fact, when she kicks the helmet, she actually broke a toe. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Little Viggo Mortensen humor there. Yeah, so these are Noldor helmets on a very dilapidated looking battlefield. After the battle, they're burying their dead and creating a memorial of helmets by the looks of the things. When and where do we think this is? I mean, I think I can guess what you guys are going to say, but
Dagor Bragaloth, I would guess. Not certain. I think it is a first age flashback. The first things that caught my eye in here was she's clearly civilian, not prepared for battle. She's not in any armor. And the helm she's holding, it's not quite visible in this angle, but it has a clear crest on it that looks like an animal of some sort of a stylized animal. And none of the other helmets in the shot has it. So kind of feels like it's an important person.
Someone special. Yes.
Someone special. Exactly.
Potentially a brother, or
exactly
the famous brother. Probably it's probably Finrod. I would imagine it's his helmet. We're going to see him later on in the trailer, so I think we'll talk about him a little bit more later on. But yeah, it's a nod to specific Silmarillion stuff. There's I don't remember the Sindarin name. I'm sure one of you guys is going to remember, but it's the mound of the dead that they built after the Nir-Naithar Noidhiad. It's kind of it's a nod to that almost. Although that was said to have had grass growing on it afterwards, which this doesn't look like it's going to sprout any grass anytime soon. But it made me think of that, and I think that was kind of a deliberate semi-nod without infringing on any Silmarillion copyright necessarily. Was my thinking. But
definitely felt like a nod without infringing.
Yeah. I think we see this same battlefield like in another flashback sense later on, like during the battle, because it looks very similar to one of the other shots that we're going to get later on as well.
Look for the dead tree stumps in the battle. You'll see them sticking up between people.
Yeah. So
this definitely looks like it's been devastated by fire, right? The battlefield. I mean, this. Yeah, it's distinctive there in that regard, I think.
Yeah, if it is first age, then every battle was scorched with fire.
Well, true. Fair enough.
So it could be any of them, but it looks kind of vaguely near Nir-Naithar Noidhiad to me.
It's a good theory. Yep.
Yeah. We've got Lindon again. We've seen this shot already, so I don't think we need to discuss it in any great length. And Elrond and some Noldor dressed in similar kind of turquoise outfits. Let me just check the dialogue, which I need to keep up with.
This is where we get the wonderful iambic tetrameter of the first 4 lines, which I didn't notice when we were first transcribing it, Jeremy. I only noticed later.
Yeah, I caught when you tweeted that out. This is when she says, "Today our days of peace begin."
Yep. Or he says. Yeah, Galad says that line, I think.
Oh, you're right. I'm misreading my notes. You're correct.
Yeah, well, Galadriel actually does start
she
off.
Says
she
the
says,
first line.
We thought the war at last was ended.
Yep.
And that's when she's placing the helm there. And then Gil-galad we've got here on the transcript, which I thought it was Gil-galad as well, so I'm glad you guys agreed. He says, "Today our days of peace begin." And then Galadriel finishes and she says, "We thought our joys would be unending. We thought our light would never dim," which is, as you say, iambic tetrameter.
Yes, and a wonderful reference to, well, not reference to, but ties to Elrond's comment in the Council of Elrond about we thought that evil was was over, and it was not so. Yeah.
The theme for season 1. I think
yeah,
we
exactly.
can probably agree. Yeah.
Yes.
I love that this is in iambic tetrameter. One of the comments that one of the showrunners made very early on, I don't remember which one it was, but one of them said very early on that they were paying particular attention to the heroic meter of different cultures within Middle-earth. Yes. And that is by far the most encouraging thing that I've heard come out of any kind of marketing material for this show. Because if you know Tolkien, then you know how important that was to him. I've been writing a video about Tom Bombadil recently, and about how all of his poetry is trochaic, and then if you look at it carefully, you realize actually all of his dialogue is also trochaic, or almost all. There's a few exceptions, but the dialogue doesn't rhyme, but it's like he's half singing the entire time. And that has a very particular effect on the prose and the dialogue. And so if you love Tolkien, you should love this. So yeah, really, really cool. And obviously
I couldn't pick up the meter of any of the other dialogue. I was looking through to see if the dwarves spoke in a particular meter, but this was the only thing I could tell. Yeah.
Not enough samples. You talked with Leith McPherson about this a little bit, didn't you, James?
Yeah, although it was funny. I was going to bring up her because when I noticed, Dan, when we were introducing the place we're now in, you very carefully said Lindon, right? Which is actually difficult for me to get used to. I often trip up and reduce the vowel and just say Linden, right? It's a very common thing in English to reduce unstressed vowels to schwas. And I just thought of that because I had a very brief interchange with Leith this morning about the SDCC, particularly how all the actors were correcting the interviewers with the pronunciations of their name. And I said to her, "You must be so proud." And she goes, "I am." and she brought up that a comment that Ben Walker had made, particularly with Galad, Galad, I should say, where the temptation is to say, to turn one of those into a schwa, one of those reduced vowels. And apparently Ben said something like, but the schwa is a very casual vowel and there's nothing casual about elves. And apparently that brought much warmth to Leith's heart. She thought, I'm so proud of everyone. I've taught them well.
I can imagine, yeah. So many people pronounce it Gilgalad, which I always find really irritating because it's like it's in the meter of the poem, in the Gilgalad poem. You can tell that it's not Gilgalad.
Yes, it's only the poem that tells us that, though, because I've always, without that poem, it would be confusing how to deal with the hyphen and is it two words, and so I'm glad we've got the poem to hint at that. Yes.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this scene?
I do like the costumes in the background, the headpieces and everything. I hadn't noticed before this particular scene. I thought it was a good little touch in there. Is Elrond at the next scene that we're going to see? Do you guys get the sense that he's watching Galadriel and Gil-galad interact?
I'm not sure. That could be a trick of the editing.
I agree.
Could be completely different. Yeah. I suspect it's different actually.
It doesn't even look like the same location to me, necessarily. I mean, well, it's probably Lindon,
but not the same, exactly the same spot. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think it's the same scene. I think it's two different scenes cut together. What do you think is the significance of her being crowned with a laurel like this?
Well, I noticed that all of the kneeling elves seem to have almost identical laurels on it. So I know I saw one theory on Twitter that he was passing a crown or adding her to royalty or something along those lines. But this looks more like, I'll say brotherhood, but some grouping of elves under Gil-galad that she's being added to.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's almost like chivalrous, isn't it? Really, they're dressed like knights almost, and the kneeling is very chivalrous as well.
And I'm just noticing right this second that helm on the ground has the same crest on it.
Yeah,
sort of the leadership mark on their helms, I would assume.
That's that laurel up close.
And there's no sign of those turquoise robes in the background. So I think it's true. I think it's a different scene.
Yeah. Another scene again with we've got Prince Durin on the left. We've got Elrond center left. We've got a figure behind this character with our back to us, which could be a blonde person, potentially Galadriel, is my assumption. Celebrimbor and Gil-galad at the head of the table. We've seen this image before. It was in It was in one of the magazine
I think
pieces that they did.
Entertainment Week, was it in EW? I can't remember.
It was in
was it Empire? Was it Empire?
It was in Empire, yeah. It was in the British one, which I have on the
Yep.
shelf next to me here. But I'm not going to go and get it. And yeah, so we've seen this before. There's a lot to talk about here, but I'm not going to linger on it too long. It looks to me as though a toast is being made, and Prince Durin is there as a kind of diplomatic envoy of the dwarves. And so they're rolling out the red carpet for him and having dinner.
So we presume everyone else, including the ones that are facing away from us, are all elves then?
It's looking like that. I agree.
I think so. I don't see your gigwit here. I find the figures in the background quite mysterious and interesting because there seem to be sort of veiled
the veiled ones, yeah.
So I don't know anything about them. They're not a component of Tolkien's lore that I'm aware of, but
no,
but it's intriguing.
Yeah, they appear to go all the way around. I assume the foreground with their backs to us are identical.
Yeah,
if they're servants or guardians, it's impossible to tell.
Yeah. Before we go any further, actually, I just want to say to the chat as well, thank you all for coming. I forgot to say this. I usually remember to say this, but thank you all for coming. It's good to see some familiar names. Mark Shisa, I've got Kugel Blitz, Homeworking Primate, which is an interesting name, which I'm enjoying. Christopher Rowland. See a lot of the same. It's really hard to keep track of what you're all talking about amongst yourselves, but it's good to see you all. Kate Patinsky, we've got All Hail the Night's Queen. Also, welcome to everybody who's watching this on video on demand as well, because I do always forget to say that, but I do appreciate people coming back and watching this after the fact. And we've got the melon heads here in the chat as well.
Hey guys.
Great guys. I've had them on the channel before. Very funny, very nice people. So good to see you guys in the chat there. And yeah, as always, if you do want to get your comment read out live on the stream, the super chat function is available to you all. So yeah, any donations to the channel go towards future content and editing and equipment and software and everything else. So definitely appreciate anybody that wants to donate to the channel in that way. So yeah, let's move on. So this is a scene with some unidentified human-looking, I think, children, and a small paper boat. I think it looks like paper, but I don't know. Any thoughts on this? Any ideas about context or?
So I'm not sure they're human. I did zoom in, extremely pixelated for pointy ears, as I tend to do. It's impossible to tell, but to me, if you look at all of the shots of crowds that we've seen, there haven't really been any children other than the main cast characters. But if you look at outfits, there's no place where everyone wears white. This if you look at like Tir Harad, if that's the village we're seeing, I haven't seen that officially called out by Amazon yet, but if we're looking at the villages, this Numenorean city, there's not large groups of people just wearing all white. So this feels like more than just kids out playing to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it is humans. Thank you, Christopher. Yes, we can plug my the repeat of my second age course later. Definitely, I'd love to. If these are humans, I would say they would have to be Numenorean. I can't imagine them being any less, if I can use that word, than Numenorean. Although, again,
the terrain. Go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, I was going to say that unless this is a flashback to Aman or something like that, and their elves. That's the other thought that I had. If this is a childhood flashback of Galadriel or something.
Maybe I didn't think about that.
It'd be interesting if one of those was Galadriel.
And another one was Finrod or something, right? I mean,
Oh yeah. Oh, the siblings.
That's what
interesting.
I'm not sure. I don't have any
Yeah.
reason to think that, other than it would be kind of fun to see.
The redhead on the end here could be like a young Mydros. This is Elrond. This is Celebrimbor. Yeah, maybe.
I could see that. But we know. Well,
I don't know why we would see that, but
yes, Gigwit is a redhead. At least the actor is.
The actor is. I don't know.
Hard to tell if they've covered him up.
But we do know. Haven't we seen the when Finrod? I guess we've been told it is walking over the hill, looking over Tirion. Haven't we seen a young Galadriel there watching him or something? Haven't we seen them younger? It's not unprecedented, is what I'm suggesting.
You might have. I don't think I have.
No, I'm. It's
I
all
don't
a blur
recall
now.
seeing that, but his robe in that shot, looking over the two trees, does remind me a bit of these white robes.
Right.
The loose white draping, hanging down. To
Forget I said anything. It's all a blur. There may be something I've seen that I can't talk about.
But a paper boat. I've seen a lot of chit chat about symbolism about the paper boat and watching it go through, somewhat rapid water. So if this ties into the Numenoreans, the sailings, it's really hard to tell. I mean, we're totally speculating our socks off at this point.
Of course. The boat. I mean, the boat could be a Teleri reference. Who knows? I mean,
exactly. It's really hard to tell. The landscape did kind of feel like the southerly, easterly shots that we've seen with Bronwyn and Arondir, etc. But we've seen very little of Numenor other than city shots. And it's really, I'm kind of trying to put all the shots onto a map, in my head, maybe for an article at some point to, map out what we think. And then as we learn, as the episodes air, we can shuffle things around. But we're seeing different parts of Middle Earth, and this doesn't exactly line up with anything I can recall off the top of my head.
I'm wondering if perhaps Osse is just off screen here and he's explaining to them the concept of what a boat is. But yeah, I can't really place this anywhere particularly in the Legendarium without more context. But it's actually one of the most interesting scenes in the whole trailer. It's understated, but it's very mysterious because you don't really know what this is. But yeah, I think we'll move on. This next shot of some kind of shroud with what is that? A 5-pointed pattern of what looks like leaves.
Yep.
To me,
I was guessing like a torn sail. It does look torn on the edges. The 5-pointed leaf, I don't think we've seen before, but obviously Numenor itself is a 5-pointed island. So, it does look like a rowboat to the left behind them.
Could be.
The curved hull and the prow, whatever that little thing is sticking up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're definitely humans. There's no pointy ears on the guy on the right, if I recall.
No. Or on the guy on the left. Yeah. This is the first time I've really stopped and looked at any of this in, frame by frame detail. But I can't see any evidence of any elves. It looks like a Numenor scene to me, potentially.
It's in a sandy area, which is why I was guessing beachfront. It doesn't look like a clean cut piece of cloth, like nice sharp edges sewn over or anything like that, which is why I was wondering if this is post shipwreck or if there's anything going on with some of the other scenes we've seen with the storms and the water and etc.
We see several ships being destroyed in this trailer, so this could be the result of one of those instances very easily.
Yeah, exactly. Is that a rope that's wrapping around it? To me, that looks like a rope surrounding in the imagery in the.
This. Yeah, possibly. encircling the 5-pointed island.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like the faithful, like some symbol we haven't come across yet,
Right.
of one of the subsets of the Numenoreans. You know.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you look in the middle of this icon, there's also a 5-pointed centerpiece, which kind of speaks to the men on armor a little. Which also has 5 points which point out towards the 5 promontories of Numenor.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it definitely speaks to me of Numenor. Although we've seen the sun iconography used so often with the Numenoreans that this is a little surprising to see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's why I'm wondering if it's like a secret group or subgroup that, because I have not seen anything, and I did try and go back and look at all the stills and trailers and stuff, and I haven't found anything obvious that we've seen echoes of this before. So this is new.
And then another boat. This is what looks to be like a elvish swan ship sailing off into presumably westward. Do we think that light source is the trees, or that we're coming into view of the Calacaria?
I'm picturing in my head that the trees at some point get destroyed in the Legendarium, and the sun eventually emerges into Arda, right, as the world becomes round, etc. And I'm kind of in my headcanon on this is the elves are out sailing eastward and seeing like the first sunrise. This is their first exposure to the sun. They've been sailing in the dark, and this is and I'm making this up. This is totally, there's no basis on this. But I mean, this looks more like a ceremonial. This is not people just in a boat. They're all standing, they're all facing. This is a ceremony, you know.
Are they all in robes? Are they all dressed similarly in robes?
I think this is the same scene that we saw in the previous trailer, and they were all dressed in the exact same outfit in the previous trailer in that shot that we saw there. That's my belief, anyway.
Yeah, and they've got the birds leading them.
Well. Yes,
nice touch.
The swans. Have I missed any dialogue here? I don't know if I've skipped over any. Let me just.
There have been little bits and pieces. No. This is the next line where he says the skies are strange.
Yeah. Well, actually, he says the skies are strange. So that sort of southwest country.
I was going to say like he's from Devon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other end would say it's reminiscent of, but not pinpointable.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Some Americans have been claiming to me that I've talked to about this have been claiming to me that maybe this was an Irish accent, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's not.
No.
I would never claim such a thing because I can't tell you an accent from. Anyway, yeah. Do you think he's looking up at the meteor? They've cut it that way like 3 times now, I feel, and
yes.
It's obviously telling us a story from between 1 and 3 minutes for these various trailers where they're doing. So that's what they want us to think. I don't think there's any harm in it. I don't think it's misdirection, but I don't actually think he's looking at the meteor when he says this.
I mean, it could be that they're just in a different hemisphere. So it could be. I mean, well. I think actually, did we talk about this before, James?
No, I don't think so.
I remember having a discussion about the fact that the skies were in different hemispheres on a round planet, and with Middle Earth at this point, in theory, being flat, would that logic still apply?
Right.
But my thought was that we know that they're.
I do remember that because I suggested
we know that they're wanderers, and there's the line in the February trailer about the Harfords wandering, etc. So we know they're nomadic, and it could be that the stars are in different places, essentially.
That's true. He could just be saying, they're not what we're used to,
right?
Although I'm leaning towards it still being the meteor or unusual astronomical phenomena that they're observing.
Yeah. Whether it's, roiling clouds before the meteor shoots overhead, or it shot overhead 10 minutes ago and he didn't see it, but obviously there's contrail or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are all perfectly valid. Are all the meteor landing scenes at nighttime? I feel like some of them, the skies are a different color. I'll have to dig back through all the scenes we've seen.
It looks as though it's like the gloaming time, as Tolkien would say. Like
sure.
It's sort of dusk.
Yes. Although it seems darker, maybe for Galad. I'm not sure. Yeah, assuming that he's looking at the meteor, right? We've got this problem that they cut it as if he's looking at the meteor, but he may not.
Yeah, somebody scrounged through all the footage that was approved and found people looking up.
Exactly. Right. It's not obvious, and there are a few possibilities. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we've covered that. Oh, there he is looking up. I made sure I got both of those in. And there is the meteor. And here we've got Arondir and Bronwyn. And you can't see from this shot, but they look like they're about to just hold hands as the meteor passes them.
They cut slightly earlier in this trailer than in the previous trailer, where you definitely see them start to hold hands.
Yeah, in fact, it starts fading to black just as they're about to on this shot, so it's slightly different time index. But
I mean, the implication being that they realize something's going on, things are about to change.
Yeah,
they're scared or whatever, right? It's a comfort. It's as if they're holding hands as comfort.
MJ Daniel in the chat here is saying Imperial probe droid.
Well, that's the sense we get, Han and Chewie here seeing the thing come land off in the distance, and they say, we need to go check that out.
J. Gabriel Martinez Cerna says, more Balrogs. Are they airdropping from the sky? Because that sounds terrifying.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. It's entirely possible that they are actually everyone seeing a meteor, and it's not the same meteor.
Yeah,
I've always sort of assumed there's only there's one meteor man, but maybe the's multiple occurrences of these.
Maybe there's two, and they find some blue cloth. Maybe there's more, really? And they're Balrogs. I was thinking today a lot about the village or whatever we see destroyed in flame.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm again, no basis. James, you and I were talking earlier about Balrogs, and I love the idea of if it's a mire. It can shapeshift. It could look like a man, and if it got upset, it could torch an entire village. So,
let's talk about that, because I think there's some hints coming up that the stranger there might be things he does either deliberately or accidentally. We'll come to it. There's a you brought it up before, Jeremy, the shockwave.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll come to it.
A few people on Twitter that I've seen that have been lucky enough to be at San Diego Comic-Con have been talking about how Daniel Wayman, I think his name is, who plays the stranger. The way that he's been talking about the character seems to imply that in these people's judgment that he's playing not a villain.
I've seen some of those comments as well.
Yeah, Caitlin from Tea with Tolkien was saying that, and Corey Olsen was saying that as well. And they're both.
He would say that, wouldn't he?
I mean, intentional or not,
Sauron, he would say that. Right?
That's exactly what Sauron would do. Yeah,
exactly. The marketing effort on this show is really overplaying their cards close to their vest, and I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm enjoying the speculation, but it can also be frustrating, and you never know what actors are allowed to say. What information they give us is not always mean what it seems to imply the first time we see it, etc. So it's this is another case where I'll take him at his word. I enjoy the thought that he's not an evil character, because we all speculated that early on when all we knew was there's a meteor man, and so that it was Sauron arriving. But
I still quite like the idea that it could be Sauron.
sure.
But I wouldn't bet my house on it.
Yeah, I think they may try to convince us that he's a possibility.
Uh-huh.
For Sauron.
Yep. And with Sauron being a shapeshifter, known,
that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
And we're seeing scenes of like Galadriel up north in Fordwaith and in Numenor and potentially in Tir Harad. You catch a glimpse of someone with blonde hair and armor that might be her.
Mm-hmm.
This is not all happening at the same time, right? So if you haven't seen two actors on screen in the same shot, there's no reason why it can't be a shapeshifter appearing at different time frames.
Do you know something else that occurred to me today about PR misdirection? Actually, was we're all assuming that we can take them at their word that this is a compressed timeline and that therefore everything is happening at the same time. But could they even do like a Westworld season 1 type thing, or like a The Witcher season 1 did something similar, where we see timelines intercut without realizing,
where we don't realize that they are? Yeah, that would be really interesting.
I could get into that. I could.
I would love that personally. I love that kind of storytelling bit.
Yep.
I'd sometimes do.
Like I'm thinking right now of Lost, the TV show where like episode 2, people were speculating that they had died in the plane crash and they were in purgatory, and the showrunners were like, absolutely not. It's a great theory. We love it, but that's absolutely not it, you know?
Yeah.
And then it wasn't.
Next shot here, we've got a dark scene at night with, I think probably we can just about see, well, you can't see it in the still image, but I think we can see the Meneltarmana in the background. So I think this is Ardman lost the Golden, is my impression. Certainly looks like a large metropolitan city, and the dome shape is very much like the Temple of Sauron, kind of, which is based on the building in Oxford, isn't it?
the Radcliffe camera,
right?
Yeah. Although that doesn't come up until the Notion Club papers, right? That's where that comes from, or is it the Lost Road? Where does the Radcliffe camera connection come from? Must be Notion
That's
Club.
in the Notion Club papers, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this if this is the setup of the next shot, then presumably this is Amenlas. But what else could it be? There are no other city like.
Well, I've speculated on geographical compression in Numenor, that they're not going to build 4 or 5 different cities and have people moving between them just because it could be distracting. So I'm kind of wondering if there's just one
Numenorean city.
One Numenorean city that's coastal and happens to be really close to Meneltarmana at the same time.
right.
You know,
but I mean, could this be anything other than Numenor? Is my first question. I can't imagine this being anything else other than Numenor, right?
I haven't looked too closely at the architecture of that tower, because we've seen towers quite often, and up north, we've seen sort of the old fortress doesn't look like this. We've seen the watchtower that Erondir is in doesn't look like this. I'm leaning Numenorean. Do you think Sauron built a temple, right? So if this is where we're currently at, we haven't met Sauron yet. Would he have built a temple? Is there a temple to Morgoth here? Like, are they changing that bit of the timeline up? Is this a shot from the future?
I don't think so. I especially if it is the lead into what we're coming up next, then I think this is early on.
This is just a palatial building, I'm guessing.
I think so. I think it is just the palace.
Yeah. It does make me think of that, though, because it does look like the Radcliffe camera a little.
Well, hopefully architecturally they took that as an inspiration, for the set designers, etc. Because that's a callback that they wouldn't have to ask permission for, if you will, just to make it look similar. So I'm really hopeful that they're doing that.
But yes, it is certainly a little early for Temple of Morgoth, you would assume. So here we've got this very intriguing scene with Galadriel and Mithril, and We've got a kind of fresco in the background or a doorway or something. Again, kind of palatial, kind of interior scene. I assume this is in Numenor.
Does that look elvish to you? The filigree and the other work on those windows, the very pointed windows, it does strike me as much more like Lindon.
Yes,
maybe. We've not seen Miriel anywhere other than presumably Numenor.
Right.
Like every location we've seen her in so far looks like she's,
Yep. When we get
from her throne.
When we get to the village being blown, like the windstorm hitting the village, there appears to be her there and some Numenorean guards, so she might go out and travel at some point. But yeah, to me, this should be in Numenor, but those windows behind them look very elvish to me, and that could just be that they had some inspiration,
right?
I mean, the elves and men were working together closely.
Right. That may have been a gift. So. May be a gift from the Eresian elves that came. The fact that there's a palantir here, though, really tells me it's Numenor at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
I would be disappointed if there were palantiri elsewhere at this point.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, other than on Eresia, but I mean,
yeah. For those who are watching this who don't know the history of the palantiri, they were built by or crafted by Feanor, and so they were elvish. That was Gandalf's lore that he drops in the Lord of the Rings. So they certainly have the rights to describe that. And so those were given as gifts to the Numenoreans, and so then they were installed in Middle Earth later on, sort of Third Age after the establishment of Gondor and Arnor.
Yeah. And Jeremy and I worked out very early on when the maps came out that all 7 of the Third Age locations of the Palantiri are marked on the maps that Amazon released in 2019. Oddly, like they even had the tower in the West March and everything. So it seemed quite deliberate, and we speculated at that point that the Palantiri would be significant. Yeah.
Yeah, I was not surprised to see this either. So, Philip Dawes is asking, can the stones see the past or the future? I thought they were far-seeing and communicating.
They can see the past and the future, yeah. They do travel in time as well as space.
We know that a being with a strong will can also make others see only things that they choose to show them as well. And also you can see things in the mind's eye of people that are communicating on the other end. So they can certainly see more than the strictly visual. Tar Palantir would have probably used them for that kind of use as well, you would imagine. But yeah, so she uncovers it and Galadriel looks at it interestedly. And we get some dialogue here as well, which I should say. Miriel says, "It is here, Galadriel, the moment we feared." And Galadriel touches the Palantir. And it looks kind of different to the Peter Jackson version in that it looks more kind of granulated and cracked than just a smooth stone that we've seen in previous depictions to me.
Yep.
I love this transition that comes. I don't know if you've actually got the shot of it, but we see Galadriel in the Palantir.
There's a single frame
of it. Yes,
as we zoom in.
I believe I do.
There it is. Yeah, there you go. You've got it. Yeah, and I love that. I love that idea that it's sort of transporting her almost into the scene. Yeah.
She's is she wearing kind of the same outfit? It looks like she might be.
That almost looked like her armor. It's so blurry, it's impossible to tell.
Well, although that could be what she was riding the dress she was riding, wearing when she rode the horse.
When she was riding the beach on the beach with Elendil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff going on behind her. There's nowhere near enough detail. I'm sure after a couple of episodes, we'll come back and figure out what's
the obvious. Yeah. What were we thinking?
Exactly.
And then yes.
The implication of the editing here seems to be that she did see this, but I don't know that we can trust the editing, so I don't know whether she will see this in the palantir. But this is what I talked about at the beginning, which looks like the battlefield, the battle in progress that we see the wasted battlefield aftermath of it later on.
Yep, you get the trees.
The bare trees and the fires and explosions.
What are your guys'
devastation.
the fire theories? I mean, if you watch these clips, and we've seen this clip in another trailer, and we've seen some other stills. The pyrotechnics here are looking more like Saruman's blowing up of the Helm's Deep wall. Like an actual explosive device. This is or magic if they go that direction, which I hope they don't. But like spellcasters throwing fire around. But if you picture two forces with swords and knives and shields, you don't expect massive explosions going off all over the battlefield, right?
Not necessarily, no. It's hard to tell what the source of the fire is.
Absolutely,
because you're right, they do look like little bombs going off rather than
dragon
Balrogs,
fire or Balrogs
or dragons. There's no sign of Glaurung anywhere.
Thank goodness.
But this does appear to be the same scene that we saw with Finrod, surrounded by orcs.
Yeah, I feel we've seen this before, and I think the next scene where we zoom in on Finrod, correct? Is his? Oh yeah, that's right. So, there's the jump scare orc.
Yeah, this all goes by very, very quickly. So this is why this is so blurry. But this is an orc.
This looks like from the background like the slave camp.
Yeah, it does.
Great.
Not the battle that we were just at.
Correct.
The camp that we're going to see again later on in this trailer, and that we also saw, I think, a Rondir fighting a warg or a giant wolf in the previous trailer last week.
Well, and his mighty leap in the very first trailer, the teaser trailer, we saw with the chain on his ankle.
Which I think in this trailer or the trailer before seems more like he's actually being pulled by the orc rather than him jumping. That was sort of changed my opinion of what was going on there. But this is a weird cut to me because the next shot is back at Finrod in the battle.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they've intercut that battle with this orc slave camp.
I think they're trying to create the impression that Galadriel is seeing all this happening.
Lots of things in one go.
Yeah.
Both
perhaps,
future and past, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, remember she says to Elrond as well in the previous trailer, "You have not seen what I have seen," and perhaps that is.
I think that's referring to this.
To some prescience that she gained from this experience. But whether or not we can trust the editing that this is what she will actually see. And whether or not she will understand everything that she does see is another question, I believe. But yeah, it's quite clever editing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is the shot of Finrod that we have already seen.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to discuss that in any great length. We've also seen this. I would like to get your opinion on this, actually, Jeremy, because James and I spent quite a while talking about this before.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to echo a lot of what James has said. I spent a lot of time about a week ago on Twitter going through all the little details in here with the frame you have on my monitor. It's a little bit harder to see, but there's clearly a Numenorean ship, I think, here with the prow, the large black bar in the middle, the double mast up there. There's in a high resolution image, you can clearly see there's two masts there, which matches the Numenorean design with the sails hanging off of a double mast. So, and the water that's rippling around the top of the tower. So to me, I'd be hard pressed to say this is anything other than the drowning of Numenor.
Yeah.
Yep.
Potentially. Yeah.
Potentially. Exactly. It's,
it could be something else that's made up, or it could be the kinslaying, but I would think this would be a slightly strange way to depict the kinslaying if it was.
I
maybe.
think so too. I mean, given the Numenorean looking ships and the fact, I mean, one of the things that I think is important has been noted that I appreciate a lot is that this looks like it took them by surprise. This does not look like a battle.
Yeah. If you look right above the head of the foreground figure, there's a couple holding hands. They just look a little inverted V in a lower image, but there's a woman and a man, or at least someone in a dress and someone in pants, holding hands. And his head, if you really zoom in on it, I think he's bearded, right? So again, I'm feeling like that's not an elf that we're looking at. The spear looks like all the Numenorean guard spears we've seen. So it's, I found a lot of hints that seem to indicate the drowning here, but there's no certainty.
Somebody on Twitter did quite a good breakdown. I don't remember who, I'm sorry, but of the architecture and comparing it to other images of other architecture that we've seen in other locations that we can reasonably assume, and just basically drawing lines superimposed over this, mainly this central piece here. And it was quite convincing that it was Numenorean architecture. So let's move on, because we've seen this already, and this is interesting.
Yes.
So this looks to be Finrod again, and this is obviously he's dead, and he's got I would assume that's the dagger that we've seen her carrying in almost every scene that we've seen her in armor with.
And he has claw marks on his arms.
Yep.
Mark Sheeser here is saying the claw marks indicate Finrod, but Galadriel and the people in the background being there means it can't be Finrod. Only Luthien and Beren were with him after his death and buried him. I
would say reading the books.
Yes, I was going to say that's not
in the appendices of the Lord of the Rings. Which means all bets are off. I would love for them to be that adherent to all the other books that are out there, but I truly think we have to let that go.
I think so too.
Does this look like the outfit she was wearing in the helm scene at the very beginning, when she was putting the helm in the massive pile?
Yes, because it's got
more or less,
it's because it's got the design on the bottom of the sleeve and where the sleeve joins the shoulder. See, it's not completely white everywhere. I think that's what she was wearing in that first scene.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I think the aftermath of that battle is all being tied together here. We're seeing flashes of that battle from her memory. We're seeing her actually be there, putting the helm in the giant pile. We're seeing her here with her dead brother, etc.
You would, going back to the Beren and Luthien story, you would quite like to narratively tie that to Sauron, his death, Finrod's death.
Finrod's death, yes.
And
I think
I appreciate you probably don't have the rights to depict, the song battle scene, but it would be nice to tie those two together.
I think particularly the motivation for what's driving the suggestion through all this and previous trailers has been that part of Galadriel's motivation for seeking out signs of Sauron is because of what happened to Finrod.
But we'll have to see. Mark is following up here and says, but that means his glorious end, being true to his oath and sacrificing himself for Beren, will be changed. Yeah, it'll be changed, or it'll be glossed over, potentially, because I don't know. It's hard to speculate on what kind of rights they have and what they don't. But
true. Yep. What they might try to do is give enough nods for the people that know what really happened, that even though they are glossing over it, there's sort of signs of, even things like the claw marks on the arm.
Yeah. In my mind, we've got it's like a 3-hour premiere. The first 2 episodes are each 90 minutes is what I've heard. J.A. Bayona. I'm kind of assuming those are going to set the foundation, have the flashbacks, introduce these characters, and we're not really going to be seeing first age stuff throughout the rest of the season. So over 90 minutes to 3 hours, setting up the characters, getting us involved in the story. The flashbacks aren't going to be more than, a minute to 15 minutes. If I don't know what it's going to be, but it's not going to be so significant that they can tell us who is Baron, who is Luthien, to people who haven't read all of these stories. So they're going to gloss over a lot, but I agree with James. We're going to get some nods that we're all going to be cheering about, but it's not going to be a named character, but there might be someone who looks obviously like Baron who appears in some scene in a flashback. It's possible. Yeah. No idea, but we're not going to get a huge first stage storytelling arc.
Well, it's interesting. I think I can share this. When I met the showrunners, one of the analogies they gave of how they were going to do things with regard to not having the rights to stuff is that the example they gave is if we know from the books they do have that Galadriel was on one side of the road in the morning and on the other side of the road in the afternoon, then we can show her on one side of the road in the morning and the other side of the road in the afternoon. If in the Silmarillion we know that she fought an orc while she was crossing the road, then we could maybe have a scratch on her face in the afternoon. We're not going to tell you how it happened, but anyone who's read the Silmarillion knows, that's the scratch she must have got crossing the road. And it's just funny that was their analogy, given what we're looking at here.
Right.
I almost wonder if, they're going to do things like that. They're going to have injuries or damage to buildings, things like that, where it's never explained to the casual viewer. But if you have read the Silmarillion or Unfinished Tales or whatever, there's like, I wonder if that's what that caused that.
Well, this gouge on his bicep here is a little Isle of Werewolves-y, maybe.
Right.
But Galadriel wasn't there when he was, buried. So,
yeah.
And then again, where Galadriel was is a big question mark. So,
yes.
So yeah, you can speculate, but you guys are right. We're not going to see Baron of Luthien. So,
although we could, given how much they talked about in Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's the most first stage thing talked about in Lord of the Rings.
That's true. Yeah,
that is true. Yeah. Aragorn gives a pretty good summary of it, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Sam, and it comes up again and again.
Yeah. This is quite a strong scene of character acting from Morgoth Clark crying. I think we can probably assume that this is from this same scene. She's mourning for her brother.
Absolutely.
And this scene answers a question that we had from the last trailer, which was what is that white stuff falling on top of Miriel's head, which it seems to be Nimloth, the white tree of Numenor.
Which I presume is a bad omen in Numenor, that if the leaves are falling off Nimloth, that means bad things are about to happen. Given the look on her face when she sees it, I imagine that she's like, uh-oh.
Right.
This is not a good sign.
Exactly. That's not an everyday experience that these all come floating on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is not the seasons changing. This is the age changing. Potentially it's a bad omen. It certainly explains the look on her face in the next scene, which we do see here.
Can you go back to why are the pillars so ancient and crumbled? Is there an indication of time here?
That's a good point. Unless
it is.
Unless this is a flash forward.
That's what I'm wondering now. Is this? I mean, with time compression, I have no idea what's going on. But I'm looking at this, and for one thing, this shows absolute age, right?
Yeah.
Because Numenor was around for a couple thousand years, which I would expect to see here. But if they're compressing so much, it shouldn't be that old of an island.
Well, compressing doesn't necessarily mean that the island was only settled for a generation. It could mean that we're just starting the story with it already having been there.
Sure,
for
but
thousands.
That was my assumption about Numenor. That it has been there for.
But you're right. It doesn't look like this the whole time, which suggests that
this is the only Numenorean architecture we've seen that's in ruin, that's ancient, which might mean that this is a very religious spot that they've allowed to age for a very long time. But to me, I saw that, and it's an interesting detail outside of all the other architectural elements we've seen.
Well, the white tree is a very spiritual location, and the courtyard that it would have been kept in would have been probably very old.
I would figure it would be maintained rather than allowed to deteriorate, but maybe it's so holy you don't reconstruct it,
And maybe that's a sort of symptom of the kind of sickness that exists in their society, and that was the thinking there.
Oh yeah, maybe it's
that they've neglected it. Yeah.
Well, but remember that it's explicitly stated in Eldarion and Arendis, which obviously we don't think they have the rights to, but or even maybe it's even in the line of Elros. There's certainly mentioned in Unfinished Tales of certain kings leaving the white tree untended. That's sort of one of the indications of a bad king, is that they left the white tree untended.
And I think that's what we're being told here in very subtle, without spelling it out, because they don't have rights to that material, but showing the deterioration here, I think is a pleasant nod to the history of this part.
Yeah.
Okay, you in the chat here, apologies if I've got that name wrong, says, does not look like Nimloth though. Can it be some other tree that came from Eresea? And Calame, perhaps. And Calame was one of the Northern Queens, right? If I'm remembering correctly.
Calame was Aldarion's daughter.
That's what I thought, So I think there's a bit of confusion there in the question. But no, I think it has to be Nimloth. I don't see...
I agree.
Don't see how it could be anything else, really.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to say, I'm not aware of any other... I mean, there's a single line of trees that goes all the way from Telperion through to the sapling that Aragorn finds, right? But it's a single line. I don't think it ever... I'm not aware of it ever splitting.
Yep. But if you look at Peter Jackson's imagery of the tree and all the iconography around it, this looks like a different type of tree. I'm not a botanist to say, what we're looking at here, but
this is the tree that was given to Eldarion and Arendis in the Mariner's Wife story, which was a different tree. That's right, but I don't believe it's that. We are told quite a bit about the flora of Numenor, and that there were other types of trees that were there, and
including Malorn trees.
Yep.
But the tree that was growing in Armenelos was definitely Nimloth, and it came from Celeborn was the name of the tree in Eresea that this came from. This was a seedling of.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think this shot also kind of confirms that this is Nimloth because of the look on her face and because of the look of concern and what Nimloth sort of signifies. But yeah, let's move on. We've got some kind of mysterious warlock on a cliff edge.
Can I just ask, was this for you two? Was this for me was the first time that I was like, okay, this is something completely different from anything we'd seen before. Everything up until this point seemed a continuation of things we'd already seen, an elaboration of things we'd already seen.
Yep.
This to me came out of left field.
I had chills seeing this scene when it first popped up.
It was like a completely new aspect of the show.
I saw some of those chat messages you popped up. I have no confidence at all that this is Sauron. I think we're seeing acolytes of the cult of Morgoth.
Yes.
I do like the imagery of the eye on top of Barad-dûr in that staff that the central figure is holding. I'm not sure what the shield or mirror or something on our right that we're seeing that looks like a Numenorean helm on the left.
Right.
So it's an interesting mix. They're all, again, this is one of the few times we see people in white robes, etc. I don't know if it ties back to those children. We did hear at Comic-Con them saying that the Bronwyn and her family, like their ancestors were worshippers of Morgoth, I think she said. So to me, this screams cult, you know.
Which I was just going to say on that point with the Bronwyn and her family. I really like that they're doing that, because in terms of the setup of what happened in the first age leading up to the second age, we know that that there were groups of men left at the end of the first age who had followed Morgoth. And a bunch of them went over east and corrupted people over in the east, and then they, came back and everything. That the whole notion of there being sort of two groups of men, the Morgoth followers and the non Morgoth followers, was there at the start of the second age. And I like the fact that they seem to be exploring that notion that there were leftovers from the first age in Middle Earth, not just what ended up happening in Numenor.
So for people speculating that this could be Sauron in the chat, that was something that was tweeted yesterday. I think it originated with Fellowship fans, and so they made an assumption that an actor that they had previously speculated could be Sauron was playing this character, and then they later kind of retracted that. So it was a little bit confused.
I think that was because of another, was it Discuss Film or something? I think there was another press outlet that first tweeted the...
Maybe they were first then, I'm not sure.
Anson Boone being as Sauron kind of was their big... Yeah.
But I don't think this or when we see the Slim Shady shot, I don't think that was him though. That was I forget the woman's name, but there's
I don't know if it's the same. This is the other thing I'm wondering about. We see them later blowing the leaf. I don't know that they're the same two people. And one of the amazing things about the sort of the androgyny of that character, or those two characters or whatever, is the number of people that just, like 50% of the internet's going with one set of pronouns and the other 50% going with the other set of pronouns. There's so much confusion about these characters. It's actually working really well, I think.
Not to get too kind of political about this, but I did immediately go with they them because I just wasn't sure. And we've got the name in the chat here. It's Bridie Sisson.
Yes, thank you.
That was the second. That was the second actor that that sort of. We'll have to look. When they seem to confirm that on their Instagram that was that was the second person, the leaf blower.
Yes,
Bridie on her Instagram posted a picture of the leaf blower.
But we don't know that this is the same character because it's hard.
Correct.
It's really hard to tell without really blowing it up, which I can't do because I don't have a high enough.
I think we're going to see a large number of people with the buzz cut hair in this.
I think it's a mark of the cult. Yes.
Yep.
Could be. Yeah. But yeah, let's move on. I think. Oh, this is the next shot.
See, I don't think this is the leaf blower.
It's really hard to tell. After you said that yesterday,
it could be.
I went back and forth a couple times with Frame looking at them too. It's really hard to tell. Between this one and the leaf blower at the end.
That is almost certainly the same outfit, I would say.
I think it's the same outfit. I think
same
it's the same
outfit.
I think
it's sort of silvery. It's not white. No. It's a bluey silvery green.
And it has the metallic frontispiece on there, and you can see something similar up on the hillside. Again, details not enough to be able to tell what it is or if it's the same person, but we're definitely being told with zero doubt, I think, that we're starting to see evil. I don't necessarily think it's Sauron at all, but every hint they're dropping is, there are bad people that we are now being introduced to.
Cult of Morgoth stuff going on. Yep. This is the next shot.
Now for something completely different.
But now we're moving over to the dwarves, right?
There you go. There's your Monty Python reference.
That's my Monty Python reference. Jeremy, I promised some people I'd make another Monty Python reference. We made Monty Python references last time.
Is this an orc emerging from?
I think this is
Someone?
the dwarf guard in front of Elrond, because then we move into the scene where he's walking
this is
on the
Elrond being
bridge.
introduced into. This is Elrond being introduced, escorted into Khazad-dum.
So I think we're at the viewpoint of Elrond. He's looking at the back of the dwarf in front of him as they're walking out into Khazad-dum.
Yeah.
From the Dimril Dale side or from the Doors of Durin side?
Must be the Doors of Durin side.
I
can't
would say
imagine him coming from the other side.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think there's
but who
anything
knows?
important over there at this
Not
point
at
of
that
the
point,
story.
No. Yeah, if he's come via Eldragion, then he would come from that side. But,
Yep.
Well, the Sylvan Elves and Thranduil might be over there ruling the Sylvan Elves. I don't know what they're doing with that, but
yeah, and here he is being led.
Yeah, I think this is a continuation. Yep.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, yeah. I'd forgotten which shot was next, but yeah, you're right. And here he is being led into Khazad-dum, which we see a little bit more of. We've kind of
already
seen.
talked it to death.
Yeah.
I love it. I haven't had a chance to say that yet. Oh my god!
No, it's amazing. This is I'm really looking forward to. This is going to be one of those shots that I'm going to want to see it on the big screen. I'm going to want to see this in a large cinema or something.
I want to see this in an IMAX or something.
Oh yeah,
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really incredible, doesn't it? We saw a shot from this same sort of angle before of this. But it's nice to see the camera pan across to it. And then this is Durin the Third on his throne, I believe, probably.
Yep, looks like it.
Hard to say what the context is, but it's probably him awaiting Elrond's arrival.
I do like that he has a throne room where the throne faces out over the city and not into the room.
Yeah,
that's it. It's like he's watching his people. That's to me, it's a very interesting decision of the set designers here. That you know, because if you think of the reverse of this, now all the people in the city can turn around and see him. Like usually kings are tucked away in their palace and it's not for the commoners to see. And this is very exposed and open.
Yeah.
For an underground city seems weird to say, but
yeah.
Which is why I really like it.
I like it because I can kind of picture Durin overseeing construction works and wanting to visualize that at all times and being very invested in what the city is doing in terms of its development and its infrastructure and everything. It seems very practical and dwarvish. This is King Durin up close and Prince Durin.
Yep.
And there's some lines here that I know people are struggling with trying to figure out, like, what are they talking about? It's
right. Yeah. Dialogue.
Durin the Third speaking. It says, beyond the darkness, tempting shadow,
right,
to bury us all beneath the mountain.
Yeah. That doesn't sound like it's taken from one speech. It sounds like two bits of dialogue that have been cut together.
I don't disagree. Yeah.
It doesn't seem to make grammatical sense to me.
And that's why I think people are talking about it is like, is this a saying of theirs? Is this, but I like the idea of cutting it in two, that it's two half sentences that they've kind of stitched together for the trailer.
Yeah, certainly a lot of that going on. Next scene is, I think it's implied to be Galadriel's eye, although it looks slightly odd.
Well, it's upside down. We're looking, her forehead is to the bottom of the screen. If you watch when her eyelid opens, the upper lid is on the bottom of the screen.
Right. But she still seems to have something covering quite a large part of her iris here.
Or that's a reflection of
that's what I was
burning stuff around her. Yeah. But yeah, it is a very odd shot, and I agree others don't think it's her. I think it is her.
No, I think it almost certainly is her, but maybe this is the ground, and this is kind of an indicator that she is
She's lying down.
Upended. Yeah.
One thing I've somewhat changed my mind about is when we saw this scene in the previous trailer, it was almost cut as if to be a flashback to something that happened in the first age, whereas now seems to me more like something potentially happening in the second age.
If you go ahead.
I think we speculated last time that the dust was, or I certainly remember saying that I said that the dust was very Anfalglyph, and it made me think of that. And I think that's where we were going with that.
But I'm wondering it now if it's related to the village.
I think it's the village burning now.
Yeah,
because of the orange-red color palette and how similar it is.
This seems to be more.
We can see village architecture in the background, and we can see that she's covered in soot again. So.
I posted a sequence ending in this slide here, the same screenshot earlier today on Twitter, just walking through architecture in the buildings and all the scenes we've seen of Galadriel with fire. The very first promo shot of her standing there with the explosion behind her, etc. They're all the same architecture. It all looks like similar buildings, etc. And so this does. I don't think this is a flashback to the first age. Right. I think this is something that's going to happen in the action of the main plot line.
Do you think it's Middle Earth?
I think it's Tirna.
Human. Yep.
I think it's where Bronwyn and Arondir are.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like a reasonable assumption.
We'll see some other shots of it coming up.
Yep.
But first this.
Yeah.
And now
this. What is this? Because there's 3 points there, kind of, but it doesn't look like Thangarodrim to me. But
Thangarodrim itself would have been gone now, right? There would only be.
Is this Angband, an old destroyed fortress? I guess that's too far west at this point.
I mean, if it's second age, then Angband's underwater.
Exactly.
I mean, if it's a flashback, it could be, but whether or not they would,
I think
have the rights for that is another question.
I think this is where they, this is one of the places that Galadriel explores with
in the icy north,
Gigwit and others in the icy north.
Yep, I think you're right.
Gigwit and the gang. Yeah, it could be. I remember saying to you last week, actually, that James, that it was possible that we might see kind of allusions to the remnants of Utumno up there in the north, and this could be something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all part of Galadriel searching for signs of Sauron, especially what we're going to see coming up with the symbol, the iced over symbol, the where they're exploring and they encounter the troll. I think all of that's related.
Does that iced over symbol look just like this 3-pronged tower?
Ooh.
I can kind of see the shape of it here if I squint.
Yeah, it's not impossible.
Or the broken blade of the sword that Theo has too.
Yeah.
It reminds me
of. Somebody in the chat here, Philip Dawes, is saying the original Minas Tirith, first age after Sauron took it over, which became Tolkien.
The problem is that'd be well underwater way to the west.
It would be in the second age, but it could be
unless it's a flashback. Yeah.
Well, I'm feeling less like flashback. There's no reason why they can't do a little bit of, if they don't name it, they can't say that we're wrong.
Exactly.
I
think this is a fortress of evil. It's
in the north.
I think that's a reasonable assumption. Yeah,
but I don't think it's named. I don't unless we find out more in the show. I think it's just going to be some unnamed placeholder for our imagination to tie to where we think it is.
Yes, I think so too. Yep.
Matt Hughes is making the same point that you made, Jeremy, that reminiscent of the mysterious black sword shape. Yeah.
Yeah.
Christopher is saying just a made-up castle in Forodwaith.
Yep.
Which is kind of what you guys said.
Here we go. Yeah.
Here's the symbol. Does that look the same?
The center piece is a lot taller on the symbol. It's 3-pronged, right? They kind of merge at the bottom. It looks like a sword hilt almost. The center piece is longer.
Also a little bit like an eye.
Yeah, if you look at it sideways, it looks like an eye that's a little bit, not closed on the right side. But I like the symmetry is not the right word. The confluence of,
Yeah.
the sword hilt, the eye, and other symbols all kind of wrapped up in this.
Yeah, for sure.
It's, I'm guessing this is, maybe a Morgoth symbol that's, held over, and we're just seeing remnants of it on old ruins and sword hilts and other things like that. And it will play a large part. I mean, this is the third or fourth time I think we've seen it.
Yep.
It'll probably be a mystery for Galadriel to try to uncover.
Yep.
She's doing her scouring of the north. I've been going for almost an hour and a half. I think I'll maybe take a little bit of a quick break and just let you guys have a chat about what you're up to at the moment, and just plug anything that you'd like to. And I'll probably talk a little bit about what I've got coming up on the channel myself as well.
Awesome.
So Jeremy, did you have anything you wanted to get through or to get across to the viewers?
Well,
I've just seen we've got 73 people watching as well, which is great. So
sounds awesome. Nice to virtually have you guys all here. No, it's I'm trying to put a lot of time into the Tolkien Collector's Guide website, adding new features that will be revealed soon. Some of which are cooperation with James. He's got an awesome website and some tools there with search functionality, and you've announced the timeline, so we can talk about that.
Yes, we'll talk about that in a moment. Yep.
No, it's exciting times. I think it's important to have a lot of data, have things be easily found, to be able to cross-reference different ideas. My focus has largely been on like information sourcing, collecting books, prints, editions, textual differences. So that's James and I have kind of crossed boundaries there and started collaborating a bit, which I think is awesome. But fun stuff. I'm glad to be here. We've launched a YouTube channel for the Tolkien Collector's Guide just a few months ago, just a couple episodes up, but we're having a lot of fun and would love to see some of you guys swing over there and see what we're chatting about.
Yeah, it's a great great channel.
It's a great resource as well that you have just for people who are watching for upcoming titles and reissues of different Tolkien titles and all that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're interested in any upcoming books or you're interested in collecting, it's the place to go, definitely.
Yep. We've got a calendar there, which is constantly being expanded, and it's crowdsourced. So we're always adding new information, but it's just tolkienguide.com/calendar. So all the forthcoming books, events, moots, conferences, game releases, TV show episodes, it's all sortable. So you can pick just the categories you want. It's worldwide. So we're not just tracking the British and American editions, but we've got international translations and other releases coming out. So it's a good resource.
And did you guys want to talk about what you're doing together as well?
Yeah, so I mean, let me say a little bit about the search stuff, and I can mention the timeline stuff as well. So, one of the things that I've been doing as part of the Digital Tolkien project is making available, without sharing any of the text, so not getting into copyright problems, the ability to search across texts and get results back across the work. So rather than having to go to every single individual work and search for it, if you're wanting to search for a word or a phrase or something across a wide range of works, to be able to do that. And at the moment, it covers The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, and the published letters. There are plans to do other books as well. It's quite time consuming because I have to digitize the texts and come up with referencing schemes and stuff like that. But I'll let Jeremy say more about what we're kind of wanting to expand that to with work he's doing. But I will quickly mention the timeline site as well. So one of the things that I'm also working on is gathering data about all of the various timelines in the secondary world, within Arda, and basically letting people browse timelines in a very customizable way, so you can filter certain types of events, certain time periods. So if you just want to see what was going on with the Numenoreans in the Second Age, you'll be able to filter that down, or what's going on with the Region. One other feature that it's going to support is the ability to look up how old certain characters were at a particular point. The idea actually came about because I was, thanks to the TV show actually, because I was trying to work out how old was Isildur when various things were happening. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if you could pick an arbitrary character and say, how old was Elrond when Eregion was founded? How old was Galadriel when Arwen was born, or whatever, those kinds of questions, to make it easy to navigate all the timeline information.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's a big challenge because there are multiple timelines that are inconsistent as well. So lots to still work out, but I'll be launching a very early version of that soon.
That's a great resource for people who do like what I do as well. I'm certainly looking forward to the future development of that and seeing that come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds really cool. And James, you're also doing some teaching stuff coming up as well.
Yeah. So I've been this month. I've been teaching as part of Signum's Portals for Adult Continuing Education, or SPACE. Signum is a university that runs has a graduate program in imaginative literature and Tolkien studies and Germanic philology. But this year they've launched an adult continuing education program, which are month-long courses that are a lot still academically rigorous, but a lot less work, no assignments and stuff like that. And I've done a bunch of courses this year on Tolkien's invented languages, Tolkien's writing systems. We did one fun course called Bridge to the Silmarillion for people that had never read the Silmarillion before, to kind of bridge the gap between enjoying Lord of the Rings and enjoying the Silmarillion. But the course that I've been teaching this month with Elise Trudel-Cedeno is a course all about the Second Age, where we're reading bits of Lord of the Rings, bits of the Silmarillion, bits of Unfinished Tales, to kind of piece together everything that is in those works about the Second Age. And I'm going to be running it again, or we're going to be running it again in August. So if you're interested in doing basically a reading course, we read the materials and discuss what's going on. You can sign up for August now.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, looking forward to that. I've put the link for that in the chat there as well. Yep. So for the Signum Space program, and if you're interested in potentially looking at the full graduate program as well, you can navigate to that as well. But yeah, definitely love everything that Signum does, and I think it's well known that I'm a big fan of the whole institution. So definitely check that out. As for me, as I said earlier on, I am working on a video on Tom Bombadil, which doesn't seem particularly well timed considering nobody's talking about him right now, really. But
Meteor Man is Tom Bombadil. You heard.
So I'm working on that. It's an interesting topic, and it's almost like a little bit of a rite of passage for people who have Tolkien lore channels on YouTube, because everybody does that video at some point. So I'm going to have hopefully some unique takes on the topic. And that'll be coming hopefully towards the end of next week, potentially. And I'll be also hopefully continuing coverage of San Diego Comic-Con. Friend of mine who's been on the channel before, Carol, was there in person. I did try to reach out to the Amazon people about trying to get her access, but potentially I was maybe a bit too late, or maybe I'm just not well known enough for them to bother with. But I tried to get her some press access, but it didn't work out. But she was there and filming footage, and I'll either have her on for a chat at some point, or we'll have enough footage hopefully that we can put together some sort of coverage of that. I had her go by the OneRing.net booth and stuff. She did meet Jed, which was cool. So yeah, we'll see about that. And I'll also obviously be continuing coverage of Rings of Power in the future, so we'll see more of that on the channel in the coming weeks and months. I will actually. I've just been away, as you know, James, because we got to hang out in person last month. But I am also going away in a couple of weeks as well. So coverage in the next couple of weeks might be a bit spotty again, but we'll try and keep things going. And I'll be working on things. but yeah, that's what's coming up for the channel and what you guys can expect moving forward. Canadian Fantasy Corner saying, hope you get access, Voice of Geekdom. Yeah, me too. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to know what their kind of release schedule is, actually, just from a practical point of view. I wouldn't like to speculate. We know the dates, but I don't know the times, which would be good for people who are covering the show to know. But they're very, very secretive. Is all I can say about that.
Yep.
So we'll see. But but yeah, that's what you can expect moving forward. I'll be doing after show live streams of the episodes, though, so it'll be rather late at night my time, but it'll be hopefully at a reasonable hour US time, evening streams, reacting to the episodes as they air in September. So definitely look forward to that, and stay subscribed and make sure you like and do the YouTube stuff. Comment below, etc. But yeah, let's get back into the trailer, I think, without too much more jibber jabber from me. So as we left before we broke up here for this mid-roll, we were talking about the symbol and the fortress and potentially a connection there. We see the symbol kind of take shape on some kind of stone plinth in an icy scene. We also see that symbol on the sword that we've seen on young Theo here. So there's definitely a connection to be made there. And this man here, he says, what does he say? He says,
have you heard of him, lad?
Have you heard of
Sauron?
And a sort of vaguely Cockney accent, I guess. Which I've only ever heard Cockney accents on orcs in Tolkien in the past. So it's nice to hear a Cockney accent as a Southerner.
So
just grab the.
He's got a spoken line in the show, which means he's not a bit character. And he made it in the trailer. Is this someone more important that we're just meeting right now, or is it just, hey, it's the only mention of Sauron we want to put in the trailer, and he said it, so let's just throw him up?
So if I can just completely speculate here, I think he's going to be the crazy old guy in the village of whether it's Tierrad, whatever it ends up being. He's the guy that's kind of got the weird theories about Sauron coming back, and everyone kind of ignores him and don't spend too much time with him. He's got these crazy theories that Sauron's still alive and stuff like that. That's what I imagine that his character's going to be.
It's a bit of a trope, but yeah.
Yes, it is. It is.
But I can kind of see that. Go ahead, Jeremy.
This isn't my idea. Someone else pointed it out on Twitter, but he's looking at his right arm in this scene, right? He's grabbed his right arm. Theo's pulling his sleeve up. There's a mark there. It's not visible in this frame, but I saw speculation.
Can you see it?
You can see it in a frame, but it goes by quickly. And it's sort of three dots.
I don't think I have it. It's very close to this frame, but I haven't quite got it.
But so the speculation I saw, not my idea, but I liked it, was when the sword rebuilt in his hand, you can see the hilt of it is really close to that area of his forearm. So maybe he got a burn mark or a brand from the hilt of the sword. But the old man who's talking to him seems to have seen what's on his arm and then said, oh, that looks like Sauron's mark, is my interpretation of this very brief little scene.
Yep.
Yeah. Why is he telling him about Sauron as well? Because it seems to be. I mean, he's prompted by something on his arm. So, is there an eye? Is there kind of a Is it? Sauron
maybe it looks like an eye.
He has on there.
Yeah. That's exactly. I love that they chose this little scenelet to drop into the trailer. It's really connecting the Theo storyline to the main one, I think, very viscerally. But I don't think we're supposed to be able to infer very much from it yet. I think it's in my mind, it was a chosen because of the name drop.
Yeah, it's like before when you were saying, let's find any shots of people looking up in the sky. This is, let's find any authorized scenes where somebody says Sauron. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it's the first mention, like, directly of Sauron that we've gotten anywhere. And so it's
not Anatar. It's not what was it? Philip. What was the name that Steve. Thank you. It's not Steve.
There are those that call me Tim.
Exactly. So yeah, it's I like that it's here. I don't know that we can read a whole lot into it yet.
I was going to say it's interesting that the first mention that we've gotten of Sauron anywhere is from a character that's not really a book character that we can tell, and isn't somebody that we've seen in the casting announcements anywhere.
Right. It's not an elf. It's not a Numenorean. It's not.
Just some guy.
It's just some guy, you know.
Yeah, it's just this guy, you know.
But yeah, it's. I want to know who Theo grows up into. You know. They're clearly setting up, I think, a multi-seasonal arc here.
And we know from a very early article, I think it was the original Vanity Fair article, said that we're going to find out the course of all of the Rings of Power, which means there's a lot of opportunity to tell stories of the Nine.
Yep.
And who they were and how they became who they became.
Exactly. So I would put money on us having met more than one ring wraith at this point, even just in the trailer materials we've seen. No speculation on who at this point, but they were being set up to realize that further down the line.
I think Halbrand, Ar-Pharazôn's son.
Oh God, yes.
Halbrand's son. I didn't even go to that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Those are characters that we might see become one of the Nine. I would say
he has the psychopathic stare down pat in like every still image. Yes. Yeah.
That's right. Because we know. Well, I mean, this isn't part of what they have access to, I guess, but in Unfinished Tales, we're told 3 of them are Numenorean.
Yep.
Yeah, that's in Unfinished Tales, but it is also kind of, you can infer it from some of the stuff that's in the Lord of the Rings. You would only do so if you've read Unfinished Tales, but we are told that 3 of the Nazgul, only 3 wade into the Ford of Bruinen, which I always assume that those are the 3 Numenoreans, and so there's this kind of bits in the Lord of the Rings where you wonder whether Tolkien always had that in his mind, or whether it was something that he thought about later on and revisited in his mind when he wrote the Unfinished Tales material. So there is, I think, Faramir does also mention Numenorean lords ruling over fell men, doesn't he? In one place later on.
Yep.
So there are kind of hints that Numenoreans were, at least some part of the Nine were Numenorean. But they'd have to be potentially from other places as well, you would imagine.
Right.
Yep.
But yeah, it's all idle speculation at this point.
Like Tirharad.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So here's this fella again. And yeah, took quite a few frames from this whole scene. But it's interesting because the cutting kind of moves quickly into this. Like he scares Theo, and then we get his mother's reaction to it almost.
Theo fell back, and she falls back. And the first time just in my first open-minded watch it, just absorb it, I thought it was the same person until I focused on the face. I was like, oh no, that's like we've now moved to someone else. Was a surprise to me because they cut it so well.
It's a really interesting match cut. Yeah,
really nicely done. But this is clearly a different scene in a different location, and we've got we don't know what she's scared of here. We don't know that this is the same place either. But this is where the trailer does go through a kind of like a twist, because it becomes suddenly a kind of horror.
The
trailer.
music, the sound stops, if I recall. Like it goes silent, which is this wonderful
and you hear the creaking floorboards.
Yeah,
and
exactly. She's probably presumably hiding. I would imagine orcs are attacking the village. She's gone into hiding, and
that's how I read the whole scene. Is the orcs are climbing into her house? She's in an attic or a closet or something.
Yep.
There's not a lot to tell us that's actually true, but that's the story that seems evident to me on watching it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, nice clawed hand there.
That's a good clawed hand to remember later, because we're going to argue over another clawed hand.
Well, I think we're going to agree on that particular hand, but there are other hands. There are other minds. There are other minds and hands in that shot.
And so we get an orc. Presumably, I would imagine an orc coming out of the lower ground floor. And I would imagine that is Bronwyn on the other side of that door there.
Yeah.
And this is this is the same, potentially the same scene still. An arm and a claw.
Yep.
This has to be an orc, I'd imagine.
Yeah, the outfit looked similar to what we've seen with their robes.
Yeah, the sort of desert-looking robes that some of them seem to be wearing. And then we skip back to Theo again, back in the sunlight, and he looks to have just found his sword hilt, his broken sword. And he's holding it.
I wonder where he gets it from.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm imagining that he's found it somewhere in the wilderness, and then he brings it back to his village, and then he starts examining it, and it comes to life.
This is just occurring to me now, connecting to other stuff we've been talking about. The village we think is destroyed by like a firestorm or some other. We see scenes coming up of the wind blowing. Is he activating something with this sword? Is he like triggering some cataclysm by bringing it back into the village? And
maybe, or maybe he's just drawing attention, like putting on the ring would draw the eye in the Peter Jackson movies. I'm wondering if it's a similar sort of thing that Sauron himself or Sauron's forces or whatever sense that this sword has been awoken.
Yep. And see, there's that little mark on his arm that's right
already
by the end of the hilt. Yeah, already. You're right.
Yeah. Before the
So I got a couple of extra frames here of the sword growing back to life.
This immediately made me think of the Morgul blade in reverse.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
The design of the blade itself, but then also the kind of the way that it builds out is reminiscent of the way that the Morgul blade evaporates or whatever on Weathertop in the Peter Jackson films.
Could be foreshadowing, or could be a red herring,
right?
But it could certainly be foreshadowing of him growing up to become a Nazgul, or
right, he could end up becoming the Witch King that you see.
I'm not sure why Sauron would give this random kid in the desert a ring of power. That's the only question I have about that.
Well, maybe we'll see. I have no idea. I have no idea.
And we'd have to see him over the course of several years grow up into a man, and so I wonder about that as well.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to see that with another important child in this series as well, Isildur.
Right.
So I do think we'll see maybe a decade or two pass in the overall arc of the season. So
we have 5 years, so these actors have got time to grow up a bit.
True. There you go.
And I think this is the ranging in the forest wastes, and
and I think that's probably the fortress that we saw.
Yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it?
Yep. I'm not sure we learned anything new in this footage, but it was interesting new footage. I mean, we see the snow troll's hand sneaking up on them in the foreground. We see him throw a massive, or somebody, I don't know if I picture the other trailer where she's fighting the snow troll or the ice troll or whatever it was, it's only twice her height. So, it's 12 feet tall. I can't see it throwing an ice block that's like 10 feet across and 5 feet wide. That was bigger than its own body. So there might be something else in here that we haven't seen yet. Yeah. And it could be a catapult. I mean, it could be a mechanical trap that
That's true.
them. We don't know.
True. There's some voiceover here as well that starts around here. Galadriel says, "I see evil rising if it is left unchecked. It will take us all." And that sort of is overlaid on this whole sequence here.
Mm-hmm.
I did make sure I got this frame as well, because we can see here it's a kind of flash of lightning in the background.
Yep.
The symbol, once again, which looks more eye-like here, I would say.
I almost wonder, this looks like it could be some sort of sacrificial, like, I could just imagine somebody's head being chopped off there. Or something. Like, I don't know, there's something going on there. This was used for sacrifices or something.
Human sacrifice, yeah.
Yeah.
Does have that feel a little, yeah. Doesn't look blood-stained, but it looks very old,
true.
so it wouldn't, would it, necessarily?
Yeah.
But action sequence, not Numenoreans, probably middlemen, probably Tirharad.
No, I think this is still in the fortress. I think these are.
There's this.
I think this is
Galadriel gang.
Yeah,
I think they're gig written.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I have never actually really stopped to kind of consider this because it goes by very quickly.
Yeah, I think they have the chainmail hoods on.
Yeah, I think they're Galadriel's group.
Yeah,
we got to come up with a name for them.
It's
hard to say, like those elves that were traveling with Galadriel in the north.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
because this is all still that.
Yeah, it wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to have that go by quite so quickly in the middle of all the rest of this, would it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And this
there's the huge ice block.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a stone that's covered in ice. There's something dark in the middle of the.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
you mentioned that yesterday, I think, or the day before.
Yeah.
I could not figure out for the life of me what it was.
There's
so few frames that it appears in.
I mean, it could still just be a frozen boulder, but it's not just ice. It's either a rock that's got ice around it, or
it's an oddly shaped boulder.
It's very odd. Yeah, it is. It's almost like a barrel kind of cylindrical shape.
Pillar.
Yes, pillar.
To me, it looked like a pillar or like a frozen waterfall, like someone had just broken off a chunk of a stalagmite or a frozen waterfall or something.
Okay. Let's keep moving.
Yeah, here we go.
This is
red shirts.
Gang. Red shirts. This isn't the troll, is it? This looks too small.
That's
the
block
block of ice. That's the block of ice.
Block of ice, yeah.
Yeah.
And then this kind of looks Numenor.
Yep. It's a Numenorean ship hull. I think it looks like we've seen this. There's a bridge in the background, and the cityscape looks very much like this is the Numenorean port we've seen before.
Yeah, the giant statue of Arendil.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Big old explosion.
Why? I'm trying to think why there would be a
whale oil is flammable. I don't know.
Or sea monster oil.
I mean, exactly. Oh, there you go. Yeah, no, there are a lot of explosions in the trailers that we've seen.
True.
I'm wondering if there will be like Sauron can throw fireballs or something. I don't think that's what's happening in this Numenorean ship exploding. I think it's just wreckage of something going horribly wrong. But there's going to be, whether it's a Balrog gets up on the surface or something is adding a lot of fire to these scenes that we've seen.
Yep. It's more likely, in my mind, to be Numenorean Civil War infighting type stuff.
Yeah, true. That could very well be the cultists and
domestic terrorism. Yeah.
Yep.
Theo and Bronwyn embracing. Not a whole lot to talk about here, other than I enjoy the acting.
And then we get somebody coming out to the orc camp.
Yep. That glove.
Yep.
You say somebody, but it's
well, I was going to let Jeremy.
It's Joseph Morley, isn't it? It's
I suspect so. Yes.
He's not named officially yet. I mean, it's but that's the glove from the character posters of the hands. That's clearly the glove that we've seen before. So that's Joseph.
Yeah, it's the same glove.
Positive.
I was going to say that. And we also see the other hand looks very not orc like.
Yes, very
human.
And we have seen scenes like this in the previous trailers where they're chanting Adar, Adar.
True.
So,
yeah.
I think that's probably the same scene.
Yeah,
because they look like they're bowing to him as he walks out.
They do.
Yeah, they do. They're kind of paying reverence to him, aren't they? This looks like the same orc camp that we've seen elsewhere as well. And I kind of worked out that immediately the first time through that this is Adar because of you, James, talking about the orc camp last week and referencing Adar with respect to that, which I didn't draw that connection until you said it last time. So I kind of figured straight away as soon as I saw the hand who this was. And yeah, they kind of...
This is where they're all bowing to him as he walks out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting headgear going on here.
Yes. Well, I think one of the actors mentioned in the Q&A yesterday, was it yesterday or was it? My timeline's all off because I haven't been sleeping much lately. Anyway, one of the actors mentioned that the orcs all can't be exposed to sun. And so they all have hoods. We have this cloth over their camp, etc. So we're not talking about Uruk-hai who have been bred to run out in the sun. These have to attack at nighttime or remain covered in the storyline.
Yep.
So I think we're going to see a lot of interesting hoods.
and very makeshift hoods as well. They just use whatever they can get to cover themselves up.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's sensible world building there, actually.
I love that. Yeah, exactly. They're not organized particularly yet. This is possibly the first little bit of organization in the Second Age that under Adar they're getting more organized.
Yeah, so they part and let them through. We get a shot of Halbrand, I think.
Yep.
This guy looks different every time I see him, but I think it's Halbrand.
I know.
In Numenor with the Numenorean sun sigil that we've seen elsewhere.
So have we heard? I thought we heard that he came to Numenor with Galadriel as a not as the stranger, but but every scene we're seeing of him, he's on a horse with the other soldiers here. Yeah, he seems like a leader already. Or he becomes a leader.
I thought the very first article, again, the Vanity Fair article, talked about him being Numenorean, who was escaping his past. Was I thought the way he was described there? Maybe I'm misremembering. Okay. No, maybe I'm misremembering. Right. Maybe I'm misremembering the Numenor reference. But a lot of people have said that he's not Numenorean and he's come to Numenor. But I was always under the impression he was Numenorean.
Right. The Vanity Fair article made reference to his kind of exile from Numenor, didn't it?
I thought so.
That's what I thought.
Okay. I'll have to go back and reread it, but
I'm not sure.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've read that.
He's been shown in this latest trailer in a lot of leadership This is not this is not a still shot of just some random Joe on the street.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I get the sense that he's high up in the military-ish.
Yeah.
Yep.
Arondir and Bronwyn look like they're trying to raise the alarm about an impending attack to me. It looks like that she's speaking to the villagers and trying to potentially make some kind of rhetorical point or speak to the crowd.
She does have a voiceover for that scene, right? That's where she calls out, each of us must decide who we shall be.
Yeah.
Does she? Okay.
Yeah. I am going to have to drop off.
Okay.
But I will leave it in your capable hands.
I saw your private chat, so yeah, no problem. We'll talk more soon, I'm sure. And thank you for coming on. It's always good to see you.
Excellent. My pleasure.
Great seeing you, James.
Yep.
All right. Take care. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Then there were two. Are you good to keep going, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
Okay. Wonderful. All right. So we've got Bronwyn and Arondir. Not a whole lot to talk about here, I don't think. But clearly they're in Tir Harad.
Go ahead.
it's the way this is cut. This makes it look like it's the same scene, but I'm not convinced that it is.
I'm not either. That if you look at the hilt on that sword, that looks like one of the elvish ones, not a man, whether a villager or a Numenorean.
It looks like an elvish sword of lesser lineage, as Tolkien might say, because it doesn't look like necessarily like one of the main big characters would wield such a sword, and it looks like a peasant hand holding it.
Yeah, that's the same point I was going to say. Is that looks like a peasant sleeve and hand that's holding it up. So maybe they're handing these out. Maybe there's, here, arm yourselves. We have weaponry. I didn't. Total speculation here, but it's not clear to me at all, especially with those orange and blue, if that's what they are, banners in the background. This doesn't feel like the village that she would be speaking in.
No, the banners look more Numenorean, if anything. Yeah, I do want to make a general point, actually, about the swords and whatnot that we've seen, the weaponry that we've seen. I like the fact that all of the swords, including the elvish swords, are straight, and we don't have curved scimitars everywhere. So where's something that slightly bugged me about Peter Jackson's swords was that we always hear scimitars with reference to orcs and so on, but it's not a big point. It didn't ruin the movies for me or anything, but that it seems to me more in keeping with Tolkien to have the men of the West and the elves wielding straight blades.
Yeah, absolutely.
This looks to be the Oath of Feanor. We obviously talked about this last week.
I know, and that's my theory as well. I can be convinced it's not, but I do think it's a flashback to the Oath of Feanor.
Yeah, based on the architecture and the obvious, iconic lifting the swords and the outfits and everything else.
And the very long hilts that we've seen all the elves carrying, the armor style. Everything, they all look alike, like they're brothers.
Yeah, they do. Somebody I saw on Twitter earlier was speculating that this character over on the right-hand side here, who comes into shot right at the end of this, could be a young Celebrimbor, which is an intriguing theory because it does kind of look like a younger version of the same actor, a little. It's just speculation, but we don't know from the lore that he would have been there, but something to wonder about. Galadriel stepping onto a boat with Numenorean cavalry by the looks of it.
Yep, I heard that this whole scene was played out for the Hall H crowd, like a couple minutes of it, and it was fantastic. So I think it's her and Halbrand, I think, coming back, coming into Numenor.
Yeah, I get the sense that they're about to leave and that this will be set up for the scenes that we see later on when they're on horseback. That seems to be the timeline. And here we see, I think I've gone back a frame. Yeah, here we see them clasping arms together. There's probably Halbrand on the right here.
Based on the outfit and the sleeve, I agree.
Yeah. More Arondir. This is another action scene with him doing ninjas type stuff.
They've definitely leaned into the ninja stuff for him. He's the Legolas of this show as far as superhuman feats. We've seen a little bit of Galadriel fighting the snow troll. She
climbing the icy cliff as well a little.
Exactly. So they're definitely setting elves up to be superhuman, if you will, in some way or another.
Yeah, super agile at least. And here he drops to the ground, and we see him kind of land superhero style.
And why does he kick this rock off the side?
I don't know, but the way that they've cut it, or perhaps that's just what happens, but it seems to create an enormous avalanche from that one brick.
Okay,
that's the way it looks. There's just stuff just tumbles down, and yeah, I imagine that this stuff does kind of. This isn't clever editing. I do think that he's probably caused this by kicking that over. But I don't know how he would, be able to do the physics in his head to be able to know that that would cause that much of an avalanche and do that much damage. But my impression was that he's kicking this debris down at all of these orcs who are climbing upward.
I'm gonna have to watch it again. I believe you. I just
it's the way it looked to me. It's just you have to kind of make a leap of logic to think that would happen, but it's fantasy. So Miriel once again. Very cool outfit.
I love the outfit. And is she holding an infant?
Yes, I think so. We have speculated, or some people have speculated, that she was holding an infant in another trailer shot that we'd seen before, and it looks that way.
And there are the white leaves again.
Yeah. So this is a younger brother or sister for Pharazôn's son, because we know that Pharazôn has a son, Kemen, and so potentially he's going to have a new brother or sister. Well, we don't know because it's not given away, but yeah, once again we see the blossom falling as well.
Yep.
Princess Disa in Moria singing. Weren't we told something about her singing affecting the way that the dwarves were able to craft their tunnels in Moria?
I remember a conversation about that with in one of the articles on the Dwarven culture. I'm really looking forward to seeing this. I don't know if people have seen more footage of this in Hall H or London or anything, but the singing of the dwarves is an important bit of the lore that I'm really curious to see how they've implemented it, how they filmed it.
More dwarven women here as well.
Yes,
which I don't think we've seen any others up until now. So, or at least not
clearly.
Not this clearly. No.
Yep.
I don't see any other evidence of beards anywhere either, which I don't want to get into that whole thorny issue that people seem to have over that. But
there are some bearded dwarven women from what I've seen, not in this trailer, but I think something that came out of Comic-Con this weekend made it pretty clear that they'll be that the princess is not the most bearded of the dwarves that we will see. The dwarven women.
Yeah, she does have some kind of like mutton chops going on, a little like wispy bits. But this we saw in the previous trailer, but here we're seeing it more clearly. This chunk of metal, which James told me that you guys, when you were doing the transcript for the previous trailer, you I think maybe he said Marcel was speculating that this was a ring, and that there was some discussion that you guys had over this. So what was your take on this, and what do you think now?
So I thought it was like an uncut gem when I first saw the previous trailer that dropped a week ago. It was so blurry and it was much further away from the camera. And then Marcel thought a ring. And then I don't remember who said, no, it's a chunk of mithril. And I'm like, oh, of course. That makes the most sense for him finding it in the quote he said in the prior trailer. And then to me, looking at this, it's very silvery. It's veined in there. It looks metallic to my eye. I think we're going to see a lot more mithril later in this trailer. It seems very obvious to me in retrospect that this has to be mithril that they found in Moria, which throws off the book timing a little bit because I'm pretty sure they found it in the first age in Tolkien's writings.
Khazad-dum had been there for very long time, hadn't it? Since the first Durin in Tolkien's
I don't have the quote tip of mind from the appendices, but it clearly says that Khazad-dum was mining riches and it was very important in the first age. And there's no mention of mithril not being found until the second age. But I think they're going with that because it makes it ties people's knowledge of Peter Jackson's movies and how important mithril is into the plot of the story. Just it's a little change of the lore, but I think if that's what they're doing, it makes a lot of sense.
My other slight thought about this is that it could be ore from the Meteor.
Oh yeah,
perhaps that the dwarves would find that interesting enough to want to craft something with it.
Yeah.
Assuming they had access to that, and maybe if there are several meteors, which we speculated earlier on, then that could be something that they would be. That I would imagine that they would take an interest in that.
Yeah.
And with the lore that we do have of meteors being used in the first age by Ale, for instance, that kind of fits with that kind of idea.
Yep.
So it's another alternative theory, but Mithril seems to be the obvious idea there. Nice shot of Arondir and Bronwyn here. I like the acting here. There seems to be good chemistry between these actors.
Yeah. I totally agree. It was such a short scene, but yeah, the chemistry between them, I think, is going to be excellent.
Yeah. So this is later on. Galadriel is leading the Numenorean cavalry. We've seen this already, but we did get a slightly more here because we get this next shot of her drawing her sword, which is we haven't seen before. But this is, we can see up close here that this is the structures behind her here. So I don't know that this is necessarily of the same. I mean, there's some kind of village potentially in the background over here in this shot, but it looks a lot further away. Yeah, it's probably clever trailer editing.
No, but you're right. I had not noticed that building in the back right there that peaked. That looks like the village to me. That looks like we're in Middle Earth, maybe down in Tirharad or whatever village. Seems possible.
Or some other Numenorean settlement. Yeah. We don't know that she will go to Tirharad at all. But,
exactly. Yep.
But yeah, could be. This could be before we see the scene where the whole place is blown up and she wakes up on the ground covered in soot and ash.
Yep.
We've got a nice scene of orcs running through the woods, which felt a bit Peter Jackson, Uruk Hai in the first movie, a little bit.
True.
Different style of orcs, but the way that they're running kind of was reminiscent. Actually, the Sauron theme that we heard reminded me of the music in that Peter Jackson scene as well. A little.
I think you're right. Yep.
The kind of marching kind of feel. So my first thought was dragon. And then I thought really big dragon. And now I wonder if it is a dragon. It could be some kind of gigantic sea monster.
I'm leaning towards sea monster. It looks finned to me. Yeah. Someone pointed out, and I've only read this. I've never heard anyone say it, but Fastitokalan. Am I saying that correctly? I'm reading it off my other screen here. It's the giant sea turtle.
In the poem, right? It's in one of the Adventures of Tom Bombadil poems, if I remember correctly.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, Tolkien has giant sea monsters. There's the Watcher in the water, maybe has a giant sea-going brother. We know there's evil things that lurk in the deep, so I don't think that this is anything other than drama to get her off of her raft. Like, I don't think we're going to have a plot line about this creature. I don't think it's going to show up. I think it's just going to be a big jump scare, crushes her raft, and we never hear of it again. But I love it. I mean, it's fantastic when they go this big with the monsters. And
it is another sign of lingering evil still being around in Middle Earth. It's that theme again of the war is not over because there's still evil, and there's still those that can unite the forces of evil. Yeah, so let's look at it in that way. Because this feels like a remnant of Morgoth rather than just a naturally occurring creature.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not the best resolution shot, but this all kind of goes by very quickly. So
it does.
A little compressed. We see her swimming away, and then we see underwaters, the practical effects that we've all seen, the behind-the-scenes shot of her in the giant tank. Drums,
Numenorean drums in the deep.
Numenorean cavalry drums. I would
Yeah.
say, yeah. I think we can see
Halbrand. Yep.
there in the background. I think
Yep.
that's the only identifiable character there. But looks to be the royal palace or somewhere close to it.
Yep.
Might be the same location that we saw in the previous trailer, actually, with the
doors.
The scene where Farazon is addressing the crowd. Yeah.
Yep.
It looks a bit similar to that. Marching feet. Prince Durin. We get to see one of the gorgeous dwarven masked helmets up close. We saw that in the previous trailer, but it was kind of silhouetted. But here we get to see some detail, and it just looks fantastic.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
I love the fact that they have armored beards.
Yeah, they must have to like create a mold of the individual dwarven beard and create a distinctive helmet for each dwarf. Or maybe their beards just grow into the helmet, and that's how they sculpt their beards. It could be the chicken or egg situation.
The one we saw in profile, the beard actually grew out up below the armor. And the other thing I want to ask is, how do you turn your head? That plate coming down, I think you have to rotate your whole upper body to look left and right. This has got to be ceremonial. I can't see this being like battle armor.
No. You make a good point.
But
the only thing I would say though is it makes me think of like the dwarven masks in the first age in the Silmarillion that they used to, shield themselves from dragonfire, which we're told about in the Silmarillion. So it kind of feels like a subtle reference to that, although you're right, it doesn't really look battle ready in any practical sense.
Well, I think armor for fighting a dragon would be protecting your beard would obviously be critically important rather than fighting, goblins or men or other things. Would be this could very well be dragon armor, which would then become ceremonial if there's no dragons left that you're aware of.
That would make sense. Yeah, that would be sensible world building once again.
Because the dragon doesn't come from your sides, right? It's pretty easy. You face the dragon, and you don't need to turn your head a whole lot. You just want as much protection as you can.
Yeah, you want to charge straight forward with your axe forward. You're definitely right that this is ceremonial just because of the context of the scene here, because this is not a battle, is it? This is Prince
but the
Durin.
guards escorting Elrond also had these masks on.
Right.
So
also not particularly good for being able to be vigilant as a guard.
Very true.
Looking around yourself in 360 degrees, but
that is true.
Meteor Man. This shot we've seen already.
Have you guys discussed at all the fact that all of these rocks are defying gravity, right? It looks like, it's landed and exploded and debris went flying everywhere. But if you watch the motion of this scene, the smoke and the flames and the ash are all obeying gravity, but these black rocks that are in the foreground are hovering. Like they are magically not responding to forces of nature.
No, we haven't discussed this at length, but yeah, that's an interesting point. It makes you wonder whether it's the Meteor Man that's making them do that, or whether it's a property of the meteor wherever it came from.
Yep, we'll get to. There's another scene of the Meteor Man where there's another effect that I want to point out because it's he's got. It's probably pretty obvious that if you can travel by meteor, you've got some sort of otherworldly magical abilities beyond just being a man. But yeah, they're clearly playing up that he has control over fire and possibly gravity a bit here.
Yeah, you're looking at a Maya or Crater. Yep. I would say power level wise, and that in the lore that lives you very few possibilities. There's the blue wizards, there's the other wizards if they want to bring them into the second age, if they can. There's Sauron.
I've heard Saruman be proposed. Balrogs are Maiar.
They are.
So I mean, there are other creatures that we don't spend a lot of time with, so they could even go with an unnamed one. Just it's a Maya, but we don't know who. you know.
I like to think that the meteor itself will be significant as well as who's inside it. And so, that's why I was thinking about that with regard to with Durin holding up the small piece of ore that we see and everything else. And so my pet theory has been for a long time that this is Sauron and that we're seeing him crash down to Earth after having attempted to rescue Morgoth from the Door of Night.
Okay.
Which that would be something that I would consider having him attempt, and that I think I've been thinking about this actually ever since the old Tom Shippey interview where he talks about what was Sauron up to in the first 1,000 years before we pick up the story with him. That seems to be something that he might attempt, and so. Yeah, I like to think that he was thrown back down to Earth, and that the mystery will be that this is him. But it's not backed by that much evidence, other than that there are a few possibilities, and that I don't like the idea that this is Gandalf. And
I don't like that either.
And if it is one of the Blue Wizards, where's the other one?
Yep. Well, if we have seen more than one meteor and they're trying to distract us, that could explain that. I agree on Gandalf, and Saruman, I think, don't make sense. Blue Wizards would be fun. I think that would be somewhat distracting to the storyline they're trying to tell. I think that would be throwing in an unrelated tangent at this point, but maybe they can make it work. Just if they've tightly plotted this out, pulling in the Blue Wizards and adding their whole storyline to everything else that's going on, I think makes it a little bit cluttered. But that's just personal opinion.
Danny's pointing out here that it seems to be two figures, and that's
definitely
quite right because we see that in the next scene.
Yep.
I think this is Nori, isn't it? This is one of the half-foots.
Yep. I think it's been confirmed to be Nori. It's hard to tell in this screenshot, but I believe it. I think that's true. Someone pointed out she's walked in here no problem, right? This is a fiery crater, and she's waltzed in. There was in the 2-minute trailer that dropped last week, we saw some of the Harfoots walking with very smoked feet. Their feet were blackened.
Right at the end of that, we did.
Right at the end of that. So, but yeah, I think it's interesting that these Harfoots, I keep wanting to say Harfeet, but the Harfoots are able to go into the crater while it's still aflame, right? That's clearly what's happening here. It's just they have very tough feet, I guess.
I guess so. What do you? Everybody assumes that all hobbits never wear feet. We never wear any footwear of any kind. Like, do you buy into that? Is that well backed up by the text?
Well, in The Hobbit, Tolkien complained that he accidentally drew Bilbo without boots on because he was supposed to have boots for most of the adventure. Like he's wearing boots in it. He loses them at one point, and then he gets more in Dale. So he's booted for most of his adventuring in The Hobbit. I don't think footwear is mentioned much in the published Lord of the Rings for them. I don't think he goes into it much, but Trotter, which is Andrew's screen name, comes from the drafts, which was he had wooden shoes. That's why he was called Trotter, because he made the cluck, clop, clop, clop as he walked around in his wooden shoes. So Tolkien had no problem with hobbits having footwear.
For those who don't know, that was in the drafts of the Lord of the Rings. Trotter, the Hobbit, who was the predecessor to Strider in Who the Hobbits Meet in Bree. So Aragorn didn't become Aragorn until quite late in the drafting process.
That's right. He was a hobbit for most of it, until late on.
So then we get Arondir here fighting one of the desert orcs, and he's attached to the orc by a chain, or he's attached to something anyway.
So James was saying earlier in our conversation today that he thinks Arondir is being pulled by this chain, like that he's being dragged in. Not sure if we can tell. I don't remember the scene accurately enough in motion to tell, but This is clearly the same arena slave camp that he was in the first trailer when he was making the jump up to get out, up to the top of this wall.
And last week's trailer as well, where we saw the wolf.
And the wolf battle. Yep. Those are all clearly coming from this. And do you have any thoughts on, is this where Arondir starts and then he goes to the village with Bronwyn, or does he start in the village and then he gets captured sometime in the first episode or two and gets put in here? Clearly it's one or the other, and I haven't really decided yet which one seems more likely.
I suspect he gets captured after the raid on the village, or during the raid in the village, and maybe he gets kept alive because Adar tries to tempt him, or tries to offer him something, or needs some information from him or something, because there seems to be more at work here than just a random orc raid.
Yep.
Is my assumption, but that's just based on a plausible timeline rather than any inside knowledge. But
I'll buy that.
But yeah, it's more ninja action with this guy, and I can't tell whether he's being dragged along or whether he's just leaping forward.
I don't think it's too important.
I think I think maybe it could be a little bit of both, but he shanks the guy.
He does have friends. If you look carefully, there's a man with an axe, or an elf. Yeah. Behind him, I think in the wolf scene in the last trailer, there were some people sitting at the bottom along the back wall. So this is a slave camp. I don't think they've said that, but it seems pretty clear.
That's right. Yeah, I think so. No indication who the others could be, but they could potentially be villagers from Tir Harad, or they could be other elves. Yep. We haven't seen him with any other elves at any point, so but we do know that he's a Sylvan elf.
Yep.
Which
what about
he would belong to some group?
What about the archery when he catches the arrow and turns around and fires it back? There were other people in the woods with him at that point, and those might be the escaped slaves, that he's helping escape at that point.
Well, that arrow was headed towards somebody else, wasn't it? Yep. He was behind him, and so he redirects it and saves whoever that person was. But which is not clear. But...
Exactly, it's not clear. So, we don't know much yet, but it's going to be one of the main plot lines of the premiere, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's Orc slamming somebody down on the ground.
This is Mystery Man. You can see the Harfoots. You can see Nori and the others in the trees watching him. I joked to James when I saw this scene. I was like, "This is Mystery Man saying, I hate this jacket," and like slamming it on the ground, But it is, I don't know what he's doing, but it looks like he's taking up his jacket or a piece of cloth or something, and he's slamming into the ground. And if you go frame by frame as it hits the ground, there's this, it's obviously CGI'd in, but there's this dome of effect that spreads from the impact of him slamming it down. It looks very similar to like the Meteor type dome effect that we see when that lands. So I don't know what he's doing here.
Well, that kind of mindless exertion of physical power doesn't feel very much like an Istari either.
It feels like frustration. In this scene right here, it feels like he's frustrated. And I can't explain, any of the context around this, but that was my interpretation on first viewing of it.
Yeah, this went by so quickly. This is the first time I've really thought of this scene. It just looks like a dark figure, a blurry figure. So I just thought Orc doing some kind of a combat thing because it's following on from this stuff.
But now it's a bearded man.
The hobbits.
Yeah, and the hobbits are sitting back there, or the Harfoots are clearly and they don't look scared. They're not hiding. They're just kind of sitting there, which makes me think he's casting a spell or performing a little mini ceremony or something. Maybe they want a fire for, it's nighttime and, let's start a fire. And he's like, oh, I know how to do that. I'm totally riffing here. I don't know what he's doing at all. But when he slams it down, you see this dust cloud go out, and I'm looking to see. All right, we got a couple scenes. So later on, we'll see a big dust cloud billow through the village, but there's intervening scenes. So I don't know if him slamming this down creates a dust cloud that has a massive effect or not, which is total idle speculation on my part.
I'm just wondering if there's any dialogue that I've missed in the last few scenes.
We did not talk about Durin when we were talking about the when he holds his hand up and we got distracted by the beard armor, he says, let there be no trust between hammer and rock. Eventually one or the other must surely break.
Yeah.
So yeah, we skipped over that little bit of dialogue, and I've seen some discussion. I have no opinions yet, but Luke Shelton, I think, was talking on Twitter about, how that seemed a little odd for something in dwarf to say.
Oh, it sounds vaguely metaphorical to me. It sounds like he's talking about diplomacy rather than craftsmanship, and that he's using a metaphor.
Yep.
So potentially he could be talking about the relationship with the Noldor.
Yep.
Total speculation, but you can kind of see some cloud coming out there, but it's not really clear. Here,
take a look later.
Is falling. Yeah, I'll watch it again. I think I missed that.
Yep.
Arondir is falling here, isn't he? It looks like he's falling into a trench, or he's being chucked.
Yeah,
in.
you see the tree stumps and everything. It seems pretty clear that this is what I'll call the slave pit again. And those hooded figures, I think, are orcs out in sunlight. So they're protecting themselves. They're all wrapped up in fabric from the sun. And there's even like a little skull or something in the middle at the bottom. Are they throwing him into is this the start of it where he gets thrown into the pit at the very beginning, or has he tried to escape and they're pushing him back in after he almost got out? Hard to tell, but I think this is the same scene as him stabbing a guy in the neck with a stick, a few scenes ago.
Yeah. This is certainly the same location. So,
yep.
Wonderful practical effects, prosthetics on this orc here.
Loving it.
We've seen this hawk before in some of the promotional images, I think.
Yep. And you can see they're under the fabric covering of the orc camp. This is the same where Adar was, and they were bowing to him. But yeah, I love the orc effect. I love the helm. It looks handmade. It looks scrounged. The orcs in this series, I'm really looking forward to. I think the practical effects have been very well done.
The practical effects, yes. I hope we get some really cool orc dialogue stuff, because some of my favorite scenes in The Lord of the Rings are orc dialogue stuff.
I know, and we didn't get any of that, did we?
We haven't seen anything like that yet.
Yeah.
I hope, that they kind of have that kind of spiteful banter that the orcs have, and they get that down. It's one of the most memed scenes in cinema as well, with Peter Jackson's edition that he made with the looks like meat's back on the menu scene, which I absolutely love, even though it's not in the books. It's something that Peter Jackson added that was just you can definitely see Tolkien writing that scene as well. It's in keeping with the way that orcs feel. Yeah. There's similar scenes in the book there, but yeah, I hope we get kind of amusing orc sadism.
Yep. I want them to have some culture. I don't want them to just be faceless, mindless evil.
No, it looks like there's different tribes of orcs, and that's nice to see. And but they've not focused on orcs as characters yet. Google Blitz pointing out the idea of orcs understanding the concept of a menu. Yes,
absolutely.
Implies that they've been to restaurants, which is hard to believe. But maybe Tolkien wouldn't have written that exact line, but it's in keeping with the feeling of the orc banter that we do get in the rings.
Exactly. So this is an interesting scene in my mind with there's a lot more people here than I would expect. It looks like there's Numenorean soldiers in the back right.
This is the sun sigil again here.
Yep. It looks like Arondir is here on the left, facing kind of near your cursor. Yep, there. Possibly.
Maybe.
I mean, this is and this frame doesn't show it as well, but I had it pointed out to me and I like it. Behind him, right behind him, you can see some blonde hair. It's not obvious in this frame at all.
Mm-hmm.
There's another frame, just one frame, where it looks more blonde and there's armor with it. And so the theory was that Galadriel is here, which would match the other scenes of her in a burning village, that this might be before the village burns. So there's a lot going on here. This is an interesting scene of this village that we're learning new information about in this trailer.
Yeah, this is one that I'll be interested to see a higher resolution image.
Yep.
At some point, we'll probably get 4K versions on the internet, so we'll be able to see more at that point. But Galadriel.
Just behind her shoulder, you'll see the 2 Numenoreans with white armor that I think were in that prior scene. They're on the right. They're over by the sun emblem. There's 2 in armor. I think those are the same 2, but there's other people it could be. But it seems clear that this scene and the next scene, the next frame you have, I think are the same location. I'm speculating, but that's why I think she's there.
Yeah, I think probably. Yeah.
But now the fire started. Now we have, embers and ash in the air around her.
Yes. Yeah, this is slightly later on than this, maybe, because I don't see any evidence of fire here except for a lot of mist in the background.
Yep.
And then we get to our... so I do think that this is the same character that we saw earlier on, that we already remarked about on the edge of the cliff, and then we see certainly it looks like the same actress as the second shot that we got on the earlier scene.
No argument.
When I saw this for the first time, I didn't think necessarily definitely evil. I saw strange and otherworldly, but she blows, I'm going to say she, because we think the actress is female. She blows a leaf down into a crevice in the ground. And
I am convinced in my own head that it is Khazad-dum, that there are veins of Mithril in the walls. And when it gets deep enough, it bursts into flame because there's somebody flammable down there.
you mean like Durin's Bane?
Exactly.
Kind of
or that this leaf or whatever is being sent down there is a message, or a spell to try and wake him or something. It's way off on timelines. Like, I don't think we should see Durin's Bane wake in the Second Age for a while yet.
I'm not sure I want to see Durin's Bane in the first season, even if they do break the law and that works. I prefer to see it later on.
But it doesn't have to be in Moria. There can be more than one Balrog who's hanging out after the battles of the First Age, right? I based on them bringing him up, I'm wondering if there's going to be more than one.
Yeah,
it is early.
I wonder whether we'll see Balrogs in flashback scenes rather than because the Balrog that we do see later on could be just a flashback element. It could be mentioned that Balrogs were part of the armies of Morgoth in the First Age, and then it could be something that is explored with Moria further down the line. But I like the theory that Durin's Bane is down there, and that this unknown character is trying to wake him.
See the silvery veins in the walls.
It does speak to Mithril, doesn't it? I think they look like veins of ore, and I don't know what other metal it could be. It has to be Mithril, I think.
It's totally my own theory. I haven't read anything, or nobody said anything to contradict it from the show.
And we don't really know what is going to happen with Elrond after a certain point. We know that he's going to visit Moria, but he has to be involved in the action and conflict somewhere along the line as well. So perhaps this is where his story goes, that he will be investigating this mystery, and that if this is like deep in the chasm underneath the bridge of Khazad-dum, that this is where that they're she's digging for Durin's Bane down there, that she knows that he's there.
Yeah,
I like that idea actually. Although, as I say, it's timeline wise, it's a bit all over the place.
Yeah, it is. And we don't have to be introduced to him, Durin's Bane, in the bowels of Moria yet, but this could be hinting at, trying to wake him, or trying to get the dwarves to go deeper. Could easily be something that the Sauron, in whatever guise is trying to get them to do. Right? We have no idea how Sauron will appear. Sauron could appear as a dwarf to the dwarves, and I have no idea what they're going to do in this show.
No. It could be that her attempt will fail, and that later on, when the rings are introduced, the dwarven rings, the 7 dwarven rings, that drives the dwarves to dig deeper and delve too greedily and too deeply.
I think the leaf bursting into flame deep in the chasm, I think, is a nod to the fans, more than plot that we're going to see early on, as a guess. But they make a big deal of all these silvery veins in all the walls.
Yeah. You don't really get a sense of how far the leaf drops, except for...
I think
the lighting doesn't make me think that this is like the bottom of the... It doesn't seem deep enough to me for it to be...
Yeah, there has to be a light source, right? For us to be able to see this. And I think in the first few frames that you had, there was some stonework. Like you could see some squared off architecture, like there on the upper right. Kind of looks like maybe there's some steps or other things. So I really can't tell. This looks like moonlight, like the way the light's coming in and it's bluish. The way they've shot scenes before this, or mirrored light. I love the fact that Khazad-dum had the mirrors to direct moonlight down into the caverns for a light source. So
yeah, we saw that in the previous trailer.
Exactly.
I really like that detail too. Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. But nonetheless, the leaf drops down and then it starts to curl up and bursts into flames, as we said. And it's kind of consumed by flames.
That's not something that would naturally happen in a deep cavern, unless you are getting down to lava level depths. So I think they're hinting at something else being a heat source, which is a sleeping Balrog would be.
Pasquale Sorrentino here is saying the name of the actress is Bridie Sisson, who we said that earlier, who plays the priestess of Melkor's cult. Have they announced that officially?
She has posted on Instagram with the screenshot from this trailer, seemingly indicating it's her, but I've not seen an official Amazon press drop.
I have not either, but they have been, after each PR release that they've done,
a couple more characters.
So that could have happened and I could have missed it. Could have happened.
Annoyingly, it's all a day or 3 after that they officially confirm stuff.
Yeah. After everybody knows.
Yeah, exactly.
Or everybody who's paying attention like we are. This scene here with Arondir, and he's got his knife out and he's in the dark, and he seems to be in a very dense forest setting. And my first thought when I saw this, because of some of the kind of like horror feeling of this whole trailer, was that he's being grabbed by monsters or orcs. But actually, having thought about it a bit, this seems like it could be an Ents thing to me. That he could be picked up from behind by Treebeard or one of Treebeard's friends and lifted up in the ground, rather like Merry and Pippin are in the books and the movies.
I love the theory. Certainly possible. My initial gut was orcs grabbing him, primarily based on, we saw some orc hands previously in the trailer that I think look similar, but I mean, it's so murky, and they're so small. I mean, unless this is, you know, an entling or an enting, sorry, grabbing him, the hands that grab him aren't much bigger than his hands, and that doesn't strike me as, you know, Treebeard sized appendages.
No, not necessarily. No,
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, I said Treebeard, and it would be a weird Treebeard if he had hands that small, because there's several hands as well. You see 3 of them at least.
At least 3. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't get too many shots of this. It's quite dark and blurry, so
it is. It's hard.
But it definitely in live action looks like there's at least 3 hands that grab him.
But yeah, I want it to be Ents. I want more Ents.
I want there to be an Ent storyline and not just a cameo.
Exactly.
I did see, actually, on the topic of Ents, dwelling on Ents, even though we've decided it's probably not. I did see that somebody asked the showrunners during San Diego Comic-Con whether or not we'll get Entwives, and one of the showrunners, kind of tongue-in-cheek, said, you may have already seen some. So the shot that we did see of the 3 Ents with the comet passing overhead, potentially at least one of those is an Entwife, and that we'll see those. Somebody's pointing out that my friend Helen, the clueless fangirl, will be disappointed in me. Well, it's not the first time that she'll be disappointed in me, Erin, so don't worry about that. But I think probably monsters, probably orcs.
Yeah, he has his armor on here, and he obviously doesn't have his armor on in the slave camp. So if we're assuming that he starts out as a watchman, and he's with the village, and we do see him in his armor when Bronwyn's talking from the pulpit and trying to cheer on people. He's in his armor. So my take is that he goes out to help defend against the orc attack at night, and he gets kidnapped. And this is before all the slave pit scenes that we've seen of him. And that's total headcanon theory. I have nothing to prove it right or wrong.
Makes sense. Yeah. So our very final shot of this trailer, very exciting and unexpected, was a Balrog.
A Balrog. I love it. It's clearly John Howe's design.
Yeah.
We've seen this before. I'm fine with that. I love the fact that the Balrog's iconic from the movies. It's great that they can persist. Everybody knows instantly what it is. They don't have to make everything look different. So I'm glad they got permission from New Line / Warner Brothers to use that, because all of John Howe's works in the movies belongs to the movies, and they can't reuse anything unless they get permission to bring it over to the show. It's a different studio. So this is one of those things I'm really glad they were able to bring over.
And it does look remarkably similar, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's just...
I'm not sure if the horns curl exactly the same way. So this isn't...
I was about to say that, but similar enough, though.
I don't think this is Durin's Bane. In other words, I think this is a brother, another Balrog. If we assume that if they could reuse the exact same look and they decided not to, there has to be a reason why they made it look different.
Well, they wouldn't reuse the exact same model anyway, just because the movies are 20 years old. They'd go for something higher poly with better textures and so on.
Yeah,
but they have, I agree, the horns are slightly different, but the mouth is remarkably similar, it seems to me, and the overall look is very consistent. I wouldn't say that this is necessary. That means that this isn't Durin's Bane, though. I'd probably slightly disagree with that, because they might well change something just enough to just either to differentiate, or for legal reasons they might change it to look slightly.
Do you what's your take on if there are wings back there in that smoke?
Yeah, it's somebody asked this right at the start of the stream, and I had to ignore it because we weren't there yet. But I think they look cool with wings, and rule of cool is a decent principle to have. My take, like textually, do Balrogs have wings? Is probably not, and that it's a metaphor, and that there's a shadow aura that surrounds a Balrog that looks like wings and can be compared to wings, but aren't physical wings.
I'm with you. I like the fact that in this scene there's enough movement in the smoke to kind of give the impression, but I think that's intentional. I think they're not answering the question. I think they're intentionally making it as ambiguous as the book is.
Yeah, I hope so. Actually, it remains to be seen whether they will address that question, because we don't know what role the Balrog will have. If this is Durin's Bane, then presumably it will have a prominent role in the story, and that we will see the fall of Khazad-dum.
Well, do we know when the Balrog went to hide and sleep in the depths? I'm pretty sure it was the end of the first age, correct, in the books?
Yeah, one would assume, yeah. We don't know. There's no lore-centric answer to that, but that would be the reasonable assumption to make there.
Sure, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this could be a first age shot, as you mentioned when we first popped it up. I like the idea that maybe he's involved in the battle that we saw with Finrod, and that would explain all the flaming, debris and jets and explosions.
Yes, please give me more first age stuff to gorge my eyes with, because I would love to see Balrogs in battle in the first age.
Absolutely.
I think that they could potentially do so without necessarily infringing on any Silmarillion copyright issues. So I would like to see that, but I wouldn't turn my nose up at seeing the Durin's Bane storyline happen. But I, as I said earlier on, I would like to see that happen season 3, 4, 5. I don't want to see that in season 1.
Absolutely. Again, I think it would be too much with all the storyline that they're setting up to see in the first 8 or 10 episodes, to see the fall of Numenor, the fall of Khazad-dum, the fall, it's like that they have to do a multi-season arc for some of these stories. So I don't want to.
They have to do a decent amount of world building to introduce this second age world to people who don't know it, the average viewer, before they can start destroying everything, frankly. I mean, people know Moria, but from the movies, but I don't know. I'd want to see the Durin's Bane storyline happen season 1, especially since it's not even supposed to happen until the third age. Well after the War of Last Alliance stuff. But as for the wings issue, I mean, I like the fact that they've left it ambiguous. I would be okay with it either way. If they do make it clear, I would like to see, not physical bat wings. As long as we don't get fuzzy boots like we got in the 70s, I'm fine.
I'm picturing like the Balrog in the Ralph Bakshi film didn't make it into the final film, but Mr. Bakshi's put it up on YouTube as a clip that you can watch. They almost fully animated the fight, and it's definitely got the giant bat wings and stuff. And then Ted Nesmith draws some awesome Balrogs that don't have wings, and that's kind of my mental picture of how I kind of want them to look.
Yeah. Reading the Silmarillion, I don't really have any sense of what Balrogs look like.
They're not really described.
They're not. They're just described. They're described in very vague terms as spirits of fire that have been corrupted by Melkor. That could be anything. It's only really in the Bridge of Khazad-dum scene that we get any idea of what a Balrog might look like, really. I try to think, like Fall of Gondolin, Book of Lost Tales version. There's not really any descriptions of Balrogs there either, is there?
No, there's not.
Not any clear ones.
I'm trying to remember. I can't pull out of my head where the description is, but there's some some description of Tolkien's where they're talking about flying across the landscape. Like he actually uses the word fly, I think, in the sense that they're running rapidly or fleeing or something. But it's it's another one of those ambiguous, why did they say fly? Why is he using that specific word?
Yeah. So yeah, that's about it for our stream here. We've gone for very slightly longer than the last stream. I saw Cassie Reflective Rambling here was saying, "Oh my gosh, you're still going." It's a long trailer and there's a lot to get through. I have learned not to have too many guests on now for these trailers, because the first one back in February I had like 5 guests on and it took forever, but everyone had to get their word in.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, this has been really fun. I'm going to send the trailer screen away now. Jeremy, it's been lovely to meet you, my friend.
Lovely meeting you as well. It was really a lot of fun to walk through this with you. Yeah. And James. Bye, James, wherever you are now.
Yeah, James has been on a few times now, and it's becoming a little bit of a kind of partnership to do these trailers together. I'm very much hoping that he'll come back on for the episode breakdowns later on in the year. Not long now, in a month or so, but I'll certainly be reaching out to other people in the future, and I hope you consider coming on again.
I would love to.
We've got your Twitter and your website down in the description below, but just one more time, just if you could let people know where to find you. And
Tolkien Guide on social media, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. The website is tolkienguide.com. It's the Tolkien Collector's Guide, mostly focused on books and related material, but we're talking a lot about the shows. I'm sure it's already having an impact on book covers and other things. So we're enjoying sort of branching out a little bit. And a YouTube channel. There it's Tolkien Collector's Guide. You can find us. We're just launched that recently, but we're having fun with it.
Yeah, it's cool to see some of these like expansive collections like that. I rather envious of some of the people that you know and some of the stuff that they have. But yeah, definitely check it out. I commend it to people. And as I said earlier on in the mid-roll, like it's also a really great resource if you're looking for information on kind of upcoming projects and various different editions of books and everything else. And yeah, it's always expanding and growing, and it's been a staple of the community for a long time now. And not to make you feel old there.
I do feel we're coming up on 20 years soon for the website. So
yeah, that's what I thought. But yeah, thank you everybody in the chat as well for coming through and for making it through with us. And we'll be back in the future with more breakdowns like this. I'll be back next week with a video on Tom Bombadil, long awaited. I've been writing it for weeks, but yeah, I'm excited for people to see my take on him. One of the most strange characters in the whole Legendarium. And I'll be back with more Rings of Power stuff in the future too. But it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Jeremy.
Bye all. Thank you.
Yes.